What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto had to spend a night with every woman in Konoha to save the village? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. It was early morning in Konoha and the sun was just beginning to rise. Most of the villagers were still asleep and would be for quite some time. Only few shinobi were already awake, but mostly because they had duties to attend to, like guard duty, one of the most boring things next to D-rank missions, of course. But in one apartment in the village, a little 12-year-old girl was starting to wake up. Her name was Uzumaki Naru. She opened her sky-blue eyes, started to get up in a sitting position on her bed and sleepy, muttering something about, "Stupid sun, always so bright," or something like that. She was still sleepy but moved to the edge of her bed and sat down there rubbing her eyes. Now she got up and slowly moving into the bathroom. Need cold shower to wake up, she thought while opening the door to her small bathroom. It had only a little shower, a sink with a mirror above it, a toilet and a small cupboard to store some things which are needed in the bathroom. Finally, standing in front of the shower, she started to get out of her night garments, which just consisted of a red t-shirt and white panties. During the night she wasn't wearing a bra because it would be less comfortable wearing one while sleeping. That was her opinion and she didn't care if other female would think different. Now she got out of her t-shirt and her panties and lay them gently on the cupboard. Taking one step into the shower, she turned the water to cold. Waiting one moment, she just turned the water on. Just as the cold water hit her soft skin, her eyes shot open and jumped back out of the shower. Now I am awake. Damn cold, she thought and sighed. Walking back to the shower, she turned the water warmer and stepped back in when the water was warm enough for her taste and starting to get her morning shower. It took her about 10 minutes to finish with her shower because she enjoyed the shower in the morning every day. She turned off the water and stepped out of the shower again. After taking the towel which also lay on the cupboard, she started to dry herself with it. After her body was dry, she took another towel out of the cupboard and put it around her head with her long hair in it so it could dry and she could go and start making her breakfast. She then took the wet towel in her left hand and did a few one-handed seals with her right hand and dried the towel with a small kaiden jutsu she learned a while ago from those scrolls she receives every now and then. She was thankful to the mysterious person who gave her the great training help with these scrolls. She remembered the day she got the first scroll. 4XX flashback 4XX. It was the 10th of October, the day Naru was born. It was her 7th birthday, but she wasn't happy. She knew that the villagers always were more furious than on the other days of the year. She didn't understand why, and she always asked herself, why? She never got an answer when she asked some of the villagers while running away from them. They only threw stones, bottles or anything they could grab at her while running and trying to beat her senseless. But she was always lucky, if you can get beaten to bloody pulp but not to die, lucky. It was always worse, but on her birthday everything got even more worse. But the Hokage himself and some Anbu members always saved her in the last moment and took her into the hospital to get her fixed again. She knew that she never was long in hospital, but why she didn't know. Normally she would stay there for 1 up to a maximum of 3 days. After that period she was always 100% healed and could leave or just got thrown out of it. On her 5th birthday it was the worst beating she ever got from the villagers. She didn't know why, but the Hokage and Anbu didn't arrive on time, so she got even beaten more and nearly died because of her injuries. Nearly all her bones were broken and her organs were also damaged. This was even the only time she stayed in hospital longer than 3 days. It took her a whole week to regenerate. That's the reason why she never left her apartment on her birthday since she was 5, she was scared. She didn't want to end like that again. She just wanted to be left alone on that day so nothing could harm her. It was another, normal, birthday for her. No parents, friends or someone else. No one. She never knew someone apart from the Hokage and the few Anbu who saved her a lot of times, who would even talk to her without saying something like, demon, or monster, and demand that she should leave immediately or they would have to do something. But they never visited her on her birthday. Only the Hokage would bring her a present on the next day and congratulate her. But her 7th birthday was a bit different from the others so far. The day began with her normal routine in the morning. Taking a shower, eat breakfast, etc. But later that day she heard a knock on the door. She was shocked and scared. Would they now start coming to beat me? she thought, and began shaking slightly because of fear. She slowly began walking to her door. "Who's there?" she asks, trying not to show that she was scared, but failed miserably. Her voice wasn't clear as normally was. It sounded like a trembling voice, and it was hard for her not to stutter. After she waited a few moments, she put her ear against the door and tried to hear if some people were outside, but could hear nothing. After waiting another minute, she took all her courage and opened the door slowly, just a few inches, to look out as if there were some armed villagers trying to hurt her again. But no one was there, and she opened the door and stepped outside to look around. She couldn't see anyone. She sighed and was relieved that no one was there trying to hurt her, but at the same time also sad that no one was there to congratulate her or something else. Just when she was about to enter her apartment again, she noticed something lying on the ground in front of her door. She looked curiously at the two scrolls lying there and picked them up carefully. What are these scrolls doing here? Someone left them? But why, and who was it? Were some of the thoughts running through her mind at the moment. She walked back inside, closing the door. She now looked at the scrolls with more interest, and she saw on both scrolls written, "To Uzumaki Naru." She wondered even more who gave her these scrolls and how he even knew her name. She stared at both scrolls and took one of them and wanted to open the scroll, only to find out that she couldn't open it. She didn't know why she couldn't open it, but shrugged it off and took the other scroll to see that she could open this scroll without problems. She began reading the scroll. "Dead Uzumaki Naru. I know that you don't know even if I would tell you my name. But for now it's enough for you to know that I am going to help you." Helping me? How? She thought and read on. "I know that you are thinking right now, how will he help me? I'll tell you know that I am going to help you to train. Not personally, but I am going to give you scrolls from time to time that you can use to help you train on different things like chakra control, taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu, and maybe kenjutsu. About kenjutsu we will say what time will do. Now back to the other scroll. I'm going to tell you know how to open that scroll, and remember how you do this, because I'm going to seal all scroll as of now, so nobody except me, and you can read them. All you have to do is to do a few hand seals to open the scrolls, and then touch the red seal on the scroll with your right index finger. It's quite easy, and with little training you will do this with little effort. Now to the hand seals. They are bird, boar, ox, bird, dog, and ram. After you touch the seal it should disappear, and you should be able to open the scroll. If you want to reseal the scroll so that nobody can read it after you read it, you just have to the same seals again, but starting from the back, so ram, dog, brd, ox, boar, and bird. After that just touch the scroll with your right index finger again, and the red seal should appear on the scroll again. If you don't know about hand seals yet, you can just ask the Hokage about that, and I am sure he will help you with that, but don't tell him about the letters. Don't tell anyone about these letters at all. From today I'll start sending you scrolls from time to time. Until we meet for real. Sincerely, a friend. P.S. By the way, happy 7th birthday Naru. To say that Naru was happy was an understatement. Nothing could explain how happy she really was, because no one except the Hokage was ever friendly to her or even told her that they would help her. But at all she didn't know what to think about all this. Why is this person is helping me, and why doesn't he tell me his name? Thinking about this a few moments before she shrugged these thoughts off and picking up the other scroll. Now let's see again. I need to do hand seals. Bird, boar, ox, bird, dog, and ram. Damn it, I don't know that much about hand seals. Only that I can use jutsus with them. Damn the academy for not showing them to us in the first year, she thought, angered but also sadly. She couldn't open the scroll at the moment because she didn't know the hand seals which she needed in order to open the scroll and see what is written in it. Thinking about some things she could try, she finally thought about her few books of the academy. Maybe I can find something about hand seals in these boring books. Then they would be good for something at least. She thought, and dashed into her bedroom where she kept her academy stuff. Looking around the room, Sei quickly found the books she had from the academy. The first book was about shinobi history, HMPF. I don't think that this book will help me, she thought when she read the book title, and after that just throwing the book on the bed. The second book was about physical training a shinobi needs to do and some training exercises. This won't do either, she thought, also throwing the book on the bed. The third book was about the basics of chakra, ninjutsu, and genjusts. That was something she was looking for. That could help me, she thought happily. Taking the book she walked, or rather ran out of the room and sit down on the table she sat before. She opened the book and searched it for hand seals. After a few minutes she found what she was looking for. Yeah. Now I can open this damn scroll. Never thought this books would be good for something, she thought, and watching at the hand seals she needed to open the scroll. Okay, now watch the hand seals. I need bird, boar, ox, bird, dog and ram in order to open the scroll. Looks quite easy. Let's give it a try. She slowly started doing the set of hand seals. Bird, boar, ox, bird, dog, ram. After finishing the last hand seals she touched the red seal on the scroll and waited for something to happen. Only a few seconds later the red seal began to disappear and a few seconds later it was gone. Now she picked up the scroll again and now she was able to open the scroll. She was proud of herself that she was able to do this and in her first try. Now she was excited what would be written in the scroll. She watched over the scroll. There were a lot of basic exercises written in it for chakra control training and other things. There were also some objects sealed in the scroll which would help her training like weights, kunai and shuriken. The weights were no normal weights. They were chakra weights which would increase their weight if the user got more chakra. The weight depend the user's chakra capacity. The first scroll itself had only some basic training exercises for chakra control, physical exercises, basic taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu and kunai and shuriken use. For the chakra control exercises there were only tree climbing and some sort of meditation. On the physical part there were some things she could do like running around, Konoha, push-ups, etc. Taijutsu was no special style, only a basic style which was also taught in academy. But at all it was something to learn for her. Ninjutsu was also only basic stuff like kawarimi no jutsu, body replacement technique, bunshin no jutsu, clone technique, and hange no jutsu, transformation technique. About genjutsu was only written how to cancel it but no genjutsus at all. She didn't mind at all because she thought that genjutsu wouldn't be that good in a real combat. The last thing written about training was about shuriken and kunai, how to throw them correctly and so on. After reading the exercises she was happy that she now was able to do something in her spare time. Something different than always eating ramen at Ichiraku's. Then she saw a little note and something sealed on the bottom of the scroll. She began to read what's written there. P.S. I know that you don't want to look too muscular because you are women. So I sealed a special medicine that was invented by one of the senin by the name of Tsunade. She herself also used it to prevent her muscles to develop that much in looks. At all this medicine will not work against your training to get stronger. It will only prevent the look of your muscles to nearly remain to look like you aren't that strong. I hope you understand what I want to tell you, but if you don't want to use it you can just ignore this. Also the mixture of the medicine is written in the scroll sealed with it. After reading this note she was happy. Now she wouldn't end up looking like one crazy bodybuilder with huge muscles. She would just look slim but would be strong as hell. She only wanted a few muscles shown on her body so she would look physically fit. She was just happy after reading both scrolls. Now she knew that someone was out there who liked her or even loved her even if it wasn't in a romantical way. She always wanted someone who acknowledged her and now she had someone even if she didn't know him personally. Only the thought that there was someone was enough for her, for now. Tomorrow I will start my training with the help of these scrolls and I will make everyone acknowledge me, she exclaimed out loud and was determined to train hard and become a strong kunoichi. Stronger than Tsunade. 4xx end flashback 4xx. That was the day she got her first scroll and she got every few weeks or months she got a new one. She always wondered about one fact. Why does she always get a new scroll when she just finished the last? That would mean that the person giving her the scrolls was in Konoha all the time. She even tried to watch for the person who gave her the scrolls but she never saw anyone putting the scrolls down in front of her door. After 3 years of trying she finally decided to leave if by the fact that she would never see the person. She just hoped that someday the person who gave her the scrolls would approach her so she could thank him for everything he had done for her. Now the towel in her left hand was dry so she put it back into the cupboard. She looked around the bathroom and took her clothes she put on the cupboard before getting into the shower. She put on all her clothes and walked out of the bathroom and headed to the kitchen to get something to eat. Entering the kitchen she walked to the refrigerator, opened it and looked for something to eat. She noticed that she only had milk in it and nothing to eat. She groaned while closing the refrigerator and walked to the table in the kitchen to take an apple and began eating it. Now she walked to some glasses which stood next to the sink in her kitchen. She took one glass and filled it with water. Sitting at the table, she watched on her clock hanging on the wall to see what time it is. It was about 7 a.m., so she had another 2 hours until she had to be at the academy for the graduation exam. She wondered what to do in this time. She knew that she had to go to bathroom again to fix her hair and do some girly stuff before she goes to the academy, but this wouldn't take 2 hours. She came to a conclusion. Talk to the fox. "Hey, Q-chan, you awake already?" was her question to the fox. She hoped she would be awake, or it would be really boring to do nothing until she needs to go. Was the only reply the fox gave her. "Ah, good, you're awake. Now it won't be so boring waiting," she answered to Kyuubi's response. "Oh Kit, it's you. But wait, I think I know exactly why you are here talking to me. You are going to accept my offer to you. I knew you would take it. I knew. So let's be." Kyuubi was cut off by Naru, who only sweat dropped at her little outburst. "Hey, wait, I never said that I would," she tried to answer, but Kyuubi wasn't listening anymore. She began to gather some chakra. "What you're doing? Stop. I never said," she tried again, but only to fail miserably. She felt slight pain in her chest, which was gone after a few moments, and now she felt uncomfortable in her clothes. What have you done?" she mentally shouted at the Queen of the Demons. "Ha," she began laughing, "only a little present. My container has to look really wide and attractive to men, you know? Just like me." She grinned. "I didn't do much at all," she muttered, and her grin widened. Naru wondered, what the hell has she done this time? She thought, slightly angered by the queen. She always did what she wants and nothing would change that. For example, one day Kyuubi had increased her body height a bit. Mostly her legs as well made her body slim. But for these changes she was never really asked. Kyuubi just always says something like, "Hey Kit, I could do this and that for you. You just need to say, yes." But always the next time Naru tries to talk to her, she just take that for a yes, and starts doing what she wants. And there was no way she could stop her doing what she wants. She thought about what just happened. "Okay. I felt slight pain in my chest, and after that I felt uncomfort." Her eyes widened and she didn't even finish what she was thinking. She quickly removed her shirt and her eyes got even wider than before. Now she knew why she felt uncomfortable. Kyuubi had increased her S and her bra was much too small now. "What the?" she began screaming mentally at the fox. "How could you? I never told you to. Damn fox." She continued screaming and cursing the fox, who began to chuckle. "Kit, I did you a favor. Now more men will be chasing you," she said while mentally adding, only to hear for herself with a huge grin on her face. "And this will be more fun for me seeing you try to escape them. You should thank that I am doing this for you," she added. Naru sighed. Why me? Why me?" she thought. "Okay, I can't do anything about it anymore. But next time you don't do anything until I say, you can, or something like that. Got that?" she told her tenant. Kyuubi just began snickering. "But what am I going to do now? All my bras and most clothes are too small now. So Q-chan, tell me what to do," she demanded to know from her tenant. Good question, Kit. Maybe you should go naked around town, then you would get a lot of attention." Kyuubi answered with a grin, and her grin even widened when she saw Naru with her motu wide open and a slight blush on her cheeks. She was just about to shout at the fox when Kyuubi went on. "Oh Kit, you should have seen your face. If I just could have made a photo of that. Damn this cage. But back to the topic. I would suggest you go shopping later. For now use bandages. This should work fine too," she said to Naru, who was now thinking about the idea with the bandages. She then walked into her bedroom to get some bandages out of her cupboard. She found the bandages quickly and took off her bra and threw it on the bed because she didn't need it at the moment because it was much too small now, thanks to the Queen of the Demons. She walked back into the kitchen and sat down at the table again. Now she started binding the bandages firmly around her chest. She wanted to get the bandages tight around her chest to let her new breasts look a bit smaller because she thought that it would look odd to have much bigger breast in only one day. After finishing her work, she watched it and was pleased with it. She put on her shirt again and walked into the bathroom again to finish her hair and do some other things before she had to go to the academy. She removed the towel around her hair, which now fell loose down her back. She took a brush and started to comb her long black hair. Finishing with that, she went on with her makeup. It wasn't much, just a bit lipstick and eyeliner. She wasn't a girl which needed much makeup to look good. Now she got in and watched herself in the mirror. She wore a white sleeveless shirt with red swirl on the back. Also she wore a blue skirt which went down half the way to her knees. Under the skirt she wore small black skin-tight shorts, A.N. Remember Tamari or Sakura, something like that. Now she looked at her hair and was wondered if she should tie her hair in a ponytail. After thinking about it a few moments she decided against it and let her hair fall down her back. It wrecked the middle of her back. Now walking out of the bathroom again she noticed that she had only 15 minutes left until she needed to be at the academy for the exam. She walked to the door, slipped in her black sandals and walked outside on the street. Right outside on the street she put on her mask. She always wore her mask of happiness when she was outside of her own apartment. She didn't want to let the villagers see that she was sad because they would see this as a good result of their work and would be even more cruel to her. If someone would now watch into her sky blue eyes they would only see happiness. If she was alone her eyes told different things. Fear, sadness, loneliness. Walking on the street she experienced it again, the hate of the villagers. Those glares they gave her and she heard some people whisper things like, "Look, there's the demon child Agan," or just, "monster," and, "demon." It hurt her but she kept it inside and not showing it to the villagers. This kept on for about 15 minutes until she reached the academy. She was happy that today was the day she could get a real ninja. This was her dream, to become Hokage and get recognized by the villagers. No one would hate her anymore and she would prove them that she wasn't the Kyuubi, just Uzumaki Naru herself. After entering the academy she walked quickly to her classroom. She had only 1 minute left until the exam started or Iruka would just start to scold at her. She just opened the door and noticed that she was late but only for 1 or 2 minutes. "Late as always, huh?" exclaimed Iruka, Naru's teacher who was watching her. She just smiled and rubbed the back of her head sheepishly. Then she put her index finger on her lower lip and put the other hand behind her back. She looked innocently at her teacher. Her back was facing to the door so that no one in the room could see what she was doing. She began forming one-handed seals with her hand behind her back. She whispered, "Majutsu. Man seducing no jutsu." She liked the technique she learned from Kyuubi. It often helped her to get out of trouble, mainly for coming late to the academy. But she will never use this technique to get someone to love her. She vowed that to herself the day she learned it, only to help her during battles or just like now, to get out of trouble. She often used it when she was followed by villagers trying to kill her or something like that. She would just use the technique, the men would be and admiring her and then the woman would beat the crap out of them because they were admiring the demon. When the men would get over it she would be long gone and escaped them again. "Sorry for being late, Iruka-sensei," she answered with a voice that seemed innocent. Every male in the classroom looked at her with a dreamy look and began drooling. Well, all except one dark-haired boy named Uchiha Sasuke and her teacher of course who was just too old for her. If Naru would just be older. Iruka began thinking but just as he realized what he thought he furiously began shaking his head to dismiss that thought. Sasuke on the other hand was mentally drooling over Naru. "She is cute," he thought and began slapping his forehead mentally after realizing what he thought. Cute? Something an Uchiha never should think of. Damn it, why'd I ever lose control when I see her doing something like this? He questioned himself trying to find an answer for that. Well, Sasuke never knew that she was using a technique to make this effect stronger than it would be without it. After about 1 minute Iruka finally was able to state that Naru should just sit down. He never could be angry at her after she does that and she did it every time she came late. So every day. But he didn't mind at all. He liked her but would never admit it to someone else because it would be troublesome to be the demon lover in public. While walking to her seat next to Sasuke in the back of the classroom she mentally high-gived with Kyuubi who was very proud of her student to be able to use her skills so well that she don't get into trouble. Yeah, training with Kyuubi is really helpful sometimes Naru thought while walking to her seat with a sweat smile on her face. She also noticed the looks she got from the female and male members of the class. Most females were jealous that they were not able to do something like that and the males were drooling and dreaming about a certain black-haired girl. Some people she knew in her class and recognized them while walking to her seat. First of all there was Inuzuka Kiba. He was her #1 fanboy and always tried to get her to date him. She never accepted because she didn't like his dog-like smell. Apart from that, he was a loud idiot like she always thought. But he was quite nice if he was talking to you quite normally. Next was Hyuga Hinata. She didn't know her that well, only that she was a very shy girl who seemed to look up to her and admire her. She didn't mind that fact, but it was always hard to talk to her because she just started to stutter or faint. Hinata was a strange girl at all. After Hinata there was Aburame Shino. Well, she never talked to him before and he was always silent and nearly never talked to anyone except his bugs. Yeah, those bugs were creepy, but Naru thought that he would be quite a nice guy if she was able to get to know him better. Nara Shikamaru, a lazy guy, was the next one she came across, and next to him sitting his best friend Akamichi Choji. She also didn't know much about these two, only that they were good friends and quite nice and they would always help someone who needed it. The next girl, namely Yamanaka Ino, was some Sasuke fangirl. Oh, she didn't like fangirls, they were just so girly girl-like. More concerned about their hair and looks than training and becoming strong to defend themselves in the ninja world. Next she noticed the pink-haired devil Haruan Sakura. She couldn't stand her, she was just so, well, Naru never could think of words to describe her. She was the #1 Sasuke fangirl in whole Konoha. Always trailing behind him, asking for dates, etc. Last but not least there was Uchiha Sasuke. Naru liked him, but she never told that anyone. Well, she didn't like his cold attitude and his "I am the best of all" character, but sometimes she was able to talk to him when he was normal. She noticed that he was in a way like herself, lonely. He lost all his family at a young age when his own brother Uchiha Itachi murdered all Uchiha in Konoha and fled, after that becoming a missing nin. She knew that his only aim was to get revenge for his clan and kill Itachi. That was the reason why he always seemed so cold to other people. She thought that he didn't wanted to get hurt again losing a precious person to him, and that other people only would hold him back and it would take him longer to get strong enough to kill his brother. She hoped that she could get to know the non-cold Sasuke better. Sitting down next to him, he could swore that he heard Sakura mutter something under her breath but couldn't catch what it was. Obviously it was something about "that bitch sitting next to my Sasuke-kun," but she didn't care at all. She smiled at Sasuke and greeted him, but all she got in response was a nod and a short glance from the boy. Then he just put his head back, resting on his hands, and listened to their sensei. Now that everyone is here, I'll start with the exam. But first I'll tell you all what you have to do in order to graduate and become a shinobi. Iruka began talking after everyone was quiet and sitting in class. Well, he just waited for Naru because everyone was already in class when she arrived. The exam consists of 5 parts. 1. A written paper test. 2. Shuriken Kunai test. 3. Ninjutsu test. 4. Genjutsu test. 5. Taijutsu test. You don't need to pass every single test in order to graduate. You will get points in every exam and you need a specific amount of points to graduate. But you don't need to know how many points you get and how many you need, yet. Naru could see that some in the room were nervous. But she was confident in her abilities and knew she would pass the tests. Maybe not as best, but she will graduate and become a shinobi. Sasuke was confident in himself, too. Of course he was, who would not if someone thought of himself as the best of the best. But he was slightly nervous about his team he would be on later. I hope I don't get weak teammates. They'll only slow me down. Kiba was not just nervous about the written test, he feared it. He never was the intelligent guy and always had bad marks in these tests. But he knew that he would do well in the other tests, so he wasn't really nervous, only a bit. That was about the exact thought of most the other students in class. They knew that they were good at some things but worse at other things. But Iruka told them that they didn't need to pass all tests in order to graduate. Then people, let's begin with the exam, exclaimed Iruka as he began to walk around and give the students the tests. Iruka began walking through the class and giving everyone the test. Good luck everyone, said Iruka when he sat back at his table in front of the class. Everyone started on their test. First of all they read the questions. Seems easy. Well, let's have a look at the first question. Question 1. Name the ranks a shinobi can obtain. Easy one. Genin, Chunin, Jonin, Special Jonin, Sanin and Hokage. Easy. Next question. Question 2. Name as many hidden villages as you know. This is a bit more difficult. Let's see. Konohagakure, Hidden Leaf Village, of course, Sanagakure, village hidden in the sand, Kirigakure, village hidden in mist, Kumogakure, village hidden among clouds, and what was the last big hidden village? Ah, I forgot. Iwagakure, hidden village among rocks. That should be enough. Okay. This question finished, go on to the next. Were Naru's thoughts while doing the test. Sometimes she looked around the class and watched the people in the room if they did well or not. It seemed that most in the room did well on this test. Sasuke had no problems, neither had Sakura, Ino, Hinata and Shino. Choji had few problems, but he was able to solve most of them. Kiba on the other hand had a hard time during the test. He couldn't figure out all answers but hoped that it would be enough to pass this test, maybe even as average and not dead last. Shikamaru on the hand just answered few questions before he wrote "too troublesome" under his test and began taking a nap on his desk. Shikamaru wasn't dumb, he was only lazy. Really lazy. Finishing her test after about 40 minutes, she laid her pencil on the desk next to her test, sat back and looked out of the window. Waiting was boring. She remembered something Shikamaru told her one day: everything is too troublesome except cloud watching. She wondered if this was true, so she began to watch the clouds. Only about 5 minutes later it was too boring to continue and she started to watch the class again. Everyone seems getting the questions and some already finished, too. Shikamaru is taking a nap. Maybe I should do the same, she thought while laying down on her desk using her arms as a pillow. Sasuke sitting next to her already finished the test a few minutes earlier and had his head rested in his palms, as usual. This test was too easy, boring and stupid. I wonder if anyone here wasn't able to answer the questions. Maybe that Dobi Kiba, he thought while smirking, which nobody could see because his face was mostly hidden behind his palms. Sometimes he caught himself glancing at Naru, who was peacefully sleeping next to him, while thinking something like, "She's looks cute," or "She's beautiful," only to hit himself hard mentally after he realized this. I'm a Uchiha and I have no time for something like this. They'll only hold me back, or even worse, I could lose precious people again if I let them become precious to me. After I killed him, then maybe I'm able to think about these things and start to resurrect my clan. He thought, and after that something added in his mind to these thoughts, with Naru, only to slap himself mentally again. After 1 hour the time for the test was finally over and Iruka stood up and told that everyone should stop writing and he would come to them to pick up their tests. After that they would have a 15 minutes break until the next part of the exam would take place, the Shuriken and Kunai test. The 15-minute break was as always. Naru had few friends: Shikamaru, Choji, Hinata, Shino and maybe Kiba. About Kiba she wasn't sure if he really was a friend or just like a fanboy. As always she sat at a tree with them and they talked about the test. Kiba tried to get Naru on a date and she would always say no, just like Sasuke would answer to any fangirl. Hinata was quiet as always. Shikamaru thought that everything was troublesome. Choji was eating a bag of chips and Shino would only nod or shake his head as answers. The main talk was held by Naru as usual. She didn't mind at all. After the 15 minutes were over they all walked to the trainings area behind the academy to have their second test. Okay everyone, let's start with the second test. You have to throw 4 shuriken and 4 kunai at the straw dummy in front of you guys. On the target are different targets and every target gives a different amount of points. You get the most points if you hit the liver, lungs, spine, subclavicle vein, jugular vein, brain, kidneys or heart. You have to throw 1 weapon at each target, explained Iruka while watching his students. So if everyone is ready then let's begin, added Iruka after seeing that none of his students asked a question and that meant that everybody understood what to do. Now it started, but most students didn't care about how the others would do in the test. Naru knew that she was one of the last people called from Iruka-sensei. Only Ino was after her. She watched the first 4 students throw the weapons at the targets on the straw dummy. It was nothing special. The first one barely hit the targets, but Naru was sure it was just enough to pass the test. The second was better at using shuriken, but the same with using kunais. He then hit the center with 1 shuriken and the others were about a few inches away from center. Well, with kunai he barely hit, just like the first one. The next was Shino. Naru wondered if he would be good at this and just waited because she would see it in a few moments. Shino calmly walked up to Iruka without saying a word. He looked down at the weapons and took the first shuriken with his right hand. Then he adjusted his sunglasses with his other hand. When Iruka told him that he can start, he watched the straw dummy and threw the first shuriken. It hit dead center in the target, which represented the heart. He continued with the Wather weapons. Naru saw that he was the best yet, and she also saw that he hit 3 times dead center and 5 times near the center, only with 1 to 2 inches away. She was slightly impressed because she never thought that the silent Shino, who never showed any emotions, would be that good. Well, she never took a close look at him at all. She heard Iruka telling Shino that he did a good job and was free to do what he wanted until the next part of the exam. He nodded as response, turned around and started walking while Iruka called the next student to perform the test. She wasn't really interested if the student would be good or bad. She just saw out of the corner of her eyes while walking away to sit down under a tree that he was something like the first. While walking over to a lone tree where she could sit down, she saw some of her classmates and watched what they were doing. Kiba, Hinata and Shino were sitting on the grass talking and playing with Akamaru, Kiba's dog. While only Hinata and Kiba were playing with him. Shino just sat there and listened to Hinata and Kiba, sometimes nodding in agreement or shaking his head in rejection. She even saw that he raised his eyebrow, but she couldn't hear the conversation, so she couldn't figure out why. She just ignored his attempts and his questions if she wants to go on a date with him. After that she saw Shikamaru and Choji. Choji was talking to Shikamaru while munching chips. Shikamaru just lay on the ground, obviously watching the clouds or maybe taking a nap. Well, then poor Choji would just talk to himself. But then she heard Shikamaru say, "Troublesome," and she giggled. Something will never change, she thought while smiling. I wonder if everything is too troublesome for this guy. Just then she heard someone shouting, "Sasuke-kun is mine." Ino pig, and an answered also shouted, "Never forehead girl. Sasuke-kun is mine," and this continued. Damn all these fangirls and fanboys. They start going on my nerves, she said in a low tone only to hear for herself. She saw Ino and Sakura fighting over Sasuke with dead glares at each other. If looks could kill, she thought while watching the two fighting fangirls. They went on shouting at each other and she wondered why Sasuke could just sit there and stand that. She had already left the two girls, but she knew that Ino and Sakura just would follow him, so it was no option to just walk away. She was amazed that he could ignore these two and just sitting there if nothing was happening in front of him. She walked slowly to the tree she wanted to sit down under, but kept her eyes on Sasuke, still wondering how he was able to do that. She never noticed that Sasuke raised his head because he felt watched. They just looked into each other's eyes for a few seconds, thinking about the same thing. Her eyes are just like mine. Sadness, loneliness, pain, like myself. Then they noticed what they were thinking and what they were looking at. Sasuke quickly watched back down on the ground, mostly to hide his slight blush on his cheeks, but also to do what he did before. He looked at Naru, brooding. But he also thought about what he just saw. Naru quickly turned her head away from Sasuke with a slight blush on her cheeks, still walking to the tree. But this little reaction of Sasuke didn't go unnoticed by the two fangirls, namely Ino and Sakura. They stopped fighting and shouting at each other and looked the way Sasuke was looking a moment before. They turned their heads slowly and stopped at the sight of Naru. They kept glaring at her with looks that could kill. Naru noticed this and shuddered. If these glares would be a jutsu with some effect, they would master it in no time, she thought. She quickened her pace and heard Ino and Sakura simultaneously shouting, "Sasuke-kun is mine. Stay away from him." They kept glaring at her like some animals which would defend her territory from some intruders. Just when she was out of range, she heard them beginning to shout at each other again that Sasuke-kun was hers and so on. She just sat down under the tree and leaned against it, thinking about what she just saw. "Hey kid, what's wrong? What are you thinking about?" asked Kyubi, who sensed that Naru was thinking about something. "Well, I saw Sasuke's eyes and," began Naru, but was cut off by Kyubi, which often happened. "Ah, my lil kid is in love. I was looking forward to that day. Now, what do you want to know about it?" she asked with a smile on her face. Naru just sighed. "First of all, no, I am not in love with Sasuke. I just saw his eyes and noticed the pain in his eyes. The same pain I have been through. Loneliness, sadness, and I am wondering why. I know that his clan has been murdered by his brother and he was the only one that is still alive, except Itachi. But he always had everything. The villagers love him and so on. He was never alone. I don't understand that. She explained Kyubi, who understood what she was talking about. You won't be able to understand. You have to ask him about that, but I don't think that he will tell you why. But I think that he wants to avenge his clan and kill his brother. That's what I would do if someone would kill my family. And now, don't think about things you can't find an answer yourself. Watch the exam and don't forget what I told you yesterday, was the kitsune's answer. Naru only nodded and watched the students throwing the weapons at the dummy. Time went on and a lot of students finished already. Everybody passed the test so far. After about 1 hour of waiting, Iruka called her. She stood up and walked slowly to Iruka. On her way she glanced at Sasuke and noticed that he was also looking at her. This caught Ino's and Sakura's attention and they began shouting at Naru again. She arrived next to Iruka, who told her that she can start when she is ready. She picked the shuriken in her left hand and turned to the straw dummy. Taking the first shuriken in her right hand, she aimed for her first target was the target which represented the heart. After a few seconds she threw the weapon with a flick of her wrist and it hit the target dead center. She took the next 2 shuriken and aimed at the lungs. One shuriken hit dead center and the other nearly. The next shuriken was thrown and it hit another target a few inches away of the middle. Now she picked up the 4 kunai, 3 in her left hand and 1 in her right. She aimed at the target representing the brain and again threw the weapon with a flick of her wrist. It also hit the target dead center. The next kunai also hit the target dead center, but the last 2 kunai were a few inches away from the center of the aimed target. She turned her head to Iruka, who just nodded and told her that she did a good job. He also told her that the next part of the exam would be held in about 30 minutes and until then she could do what she wanted to do. After that she walked back to the tree she was before she had to go to Iruka. On her way she just ignored Kiba and the 2 shouting fangirls. She hated fangirls. She was sitting under the tree and talking with Kyubi about some things. For example, about the exam and later training, where Kyubi would help her by telling her what to do and where she would make mistakes. Naru thought of Kyubi as a mother and hoped that her real mother would have been like her, except that she always did what she wanted to Naru. She kept talking to her and sometimes stole a quick glance at Sasuke, always thinking, why? The half-an-hour break was quickly over and Iruka called all his students to come to him. When he saw that everyone was around him, he started to explain the third part of the exam, ninjutsu. Okay everyone, now that the second part of the exam is finished, we will advance to the next part, the ninjutsu test. There is not much to explain for this test. You will have to do 3 jutsus. Kawarimi no jutsu, replacement technique, Bunshin no jutsu, clone technique, and Hange no jutsu, transformation technique. The Kawarimi has to be done with the log next to me. You have to do at least 3 clones and you have to henge yourself into me. That's all to explain about this part. When I call your name, just come to me. Iruka explained, and after that everyone turned around and walked somewhere to sit down. Naru walked back to her tree, sat down and began talking to Kyubi again while also watching the students performing in the test. It wasn't a hard test and everyone did at least 2 of the 3 techniques right, so everyone passed. Now it was Naru's turn and she walked up to Iruka. Okay Naru, now it's your turn. Go ahead and start with the Kawarimi no jutsu, said Iruka. Naru quickly did the few needed hand seals for the technique, and after the smoke was gone there was a log where Naru just stood before and Naru was in the position the log was before. Good, now do at least 3 clones of yourself please, Iruka told Naru. She nodded and started doing hand seals again. A few hand seals, a call of Bunshin no jutsu, and a few clouds of Samka. Later there stood 4 Naris. Obvious 3 clones and the real Naru. She didn't do the academy, Bunshin no jutsu, but no one noticed it. She never could do this simple jutsu and Kyubi told her because of the demonic chakra which slowly merges with her. It's too strong for a simple jutsu like this, and that's why her normal clones would always look like dead or really sick. She learned the Kage Bunshin no jutsu a few months ago, again from one of the scrolls she got. It took much more chakra than the normal clone technique, and because of that she was able to do it. She just made everyone think she did the Academy Bunshin by doing the hand seals for the technique and calling it out, but she just faked it. No one saw that these clones were real clones. Not even Iruka. Good job, now do the last technique please. said Iruka, who was relieved that one of her favorite students passed the test because he knew that Naru couldn't do the Bunshin technique right a few weeks ago. Now Naru again did a few hand seals and said, "Henge," and after the smoke was gone there stood another Iruka in front of him with a smile on his face. "Okay, well done Naru, you can release your clones and henge now. You passed this test," said a happy Iruka. He now knew for sure that Naru would be a genin after today. Naru quickly dispelled the henge but didn't release her clones. Quickly her 3 clones began to do hand seals and whispered, "Oiro no jutsu y technique." The clones were still in the smoke but called her sensei. "Iruka sensei?" one of the clones said. "What is it Naru?" He answered and looked up from his paper where he just wrote that Naru passed and was looking for the next student in line for the test. After the smoke was gone again he saw the 3 clones and a smirking Naru behind them. His eyes widened and suddenly he flew back a few meters because of giant nosebleed which was caused by the scene he saw in front of him. In front of him stood 3 Naris. Well, no normal Naris at all. The 3 clones were Naru at an age between 18 to 20. Or it was some other girl, but most boys and men who saw this were sure it would be an older Naru because of a few things. Black long hair, sapphire blue eyes and 3 whiskers on each cheek. But she was taller and her S were bigger than now. To sum up, her whole body was damn hot, like Kiba exclaimed as he saw this. The fact that gave every male who saw this a nosebleed was because this older Naru was naked. Only a few parts of her body were covered in clouds. Even the great Uchiha got a nosebleed at this sight, which he quickly covered with his hand and turning away from his fangirls. He didn't want his fangirls to see that he liked seeing Naru like that because he feared what these 2 crazy girls could do when they noticed that. Yeah, the great Uchiha Sasuke feared something, fangirls. They were scary from his point of view. Naru noticed that nearly every male was lying on the floor unconscious and that all the females glared at her. She just released her clone, pleased with the fact that it worked what she wanted to do. She began to giggle, turned around and started walking away from the scene to sat down by the tree again. She began talking to the queen of the demons, who was proud of her little kid. At all, it was Kyuubi's idea to do that, and it was also Kyuubi's idea of this jutsu. Naru just agreed to all of this and was excited to try this technique. At all, it could be helpful on later missions if some men would be her enemies or something like that. It was a mighty technique against all perverts. Even the Hokage in his office was unconscious after this because he saw everything through his crystal ball. The last thought he had was to make this a forbidden technique. It took about 15 minutes for Iruka to get conscious. First he wanted to scold Naru for developing such a stupid jutsu, but he noticed that he was 15 minutes unconscious and had to go on with the exam. He watched Naru sitting under a tree. She giggled, nearly laughing at this sight. Iruka just thought, later. Naru, later, and he called the next on his list. Naru was still talking to Kyuubi about the sight of all boys and men lying on the floor slowly waking up one by one. They knew they had to repeat it someday only to see something like this again. It was a sight you would never forget in your life. They kept talking until it was time for the next part of the exam, the genjutsu test. Naru wasn't good at genjutsu, she never was. She knew what to do to dispel a genjutsu, but she found it really hard to do. She was worried that would fail the exam, but her tenant encouraged and said that she will do fine. So she stood up and walked over to Iruka, who watched her with a look that said, "We will talk later." She shuddered slightly but shrugged it off. "Okay boys and girls. Now that the 3rd part is finished, we will go on with the next part, the genjutsu test. The test is really simple. I will call one by one of you into the classroom. There you'll have to recognize a simple genjutsu and try to dispel it. If you can't dispel it, you can tell us where the genjutsu is placed and you will get half of the points you can earn in this exam. Are there any question?" Iruka explained while watching if someone had a question. No one raised his hand or asked something, so he went on, "Then let's begin. First to go with me in the classroom is," and the 4th part of the exam began. Naru noticed that no one took long in the room. This could mean 2 things. The genjutsu was really simple and nobody has problems to see through it, or it was too hard and they just couldn't see through it and gave up quickly. She didn't hope for the later. She watched one by one walking in and out of the room. And finally it was her turn and she walked into the room. "Good. Naru, this is the test. You see the 3 shuriken here? Iruka asked Naru, who just nodded. One of these shuriken is a kunai with a genjutsu placed on it. You had to dispel the genjutsu or tell me which one is the kunai. You can start now. Naru watched the 3 items on the table in front of her. She couldn't see which one was the kunai. She just couldn't see it. Hey Q-chan, can you help me with that? She asked Kyubi, who simply said, no. It was clear there was no need to argue with the Queen of the Demons because she would never change her mind. She watched the shuriken again and tried hard to see through the genjutsu. It was hard to see through it, well from her point of view. Come on Naru, you can do this. She thought, still watching the shuriken but still with no success. Nothing changed. All she saw was just the 3 shuriken lying in front of her. She always hated genjutsu. Genjutsu is crap and nobody need it, she thought, and always told it to Kyubi, who just told her, a good ninja need to know every area of fighting. Taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu and maybe kenjutsu. What would you do if someone uses a genjutsu against you and you are not able to dispel it? You would die in a real battle. She hated it, but she had to admit that Kyubi was right. But at all she couldn't do genjutsu. Even after learning it for a long time she wasn't able to do it right. Okay Naru, concentrate. You can do it, she thought while focusing on the 3 objects in front of her. After about 15 seconds nothing changed. She still couldn't through it and wasn't able to dispel it at all. Damn this fucking genjutsu. Genjutsu sucks. It's bullshits. No one needs some shit like this. She began to swear. Okay Naru, calm down. You won't do this if you go crazy and start swearing. Just focus on your task. Focus. Focus, and so she did. She calmed down and focused as hard as she could on the 3 weapons. She closed her eyes and opened them again. She couldn't believe what she saw. There in front of her lay 2 shuriken, not 3, and 1 kunai. She quickly made a ram seal and said, Kai. After that she closed her eyes again and hoped that she did it. She opened them slowly and saw that there was indeed a kunai lying between 2 shuriken. She pumped her fist in the air and just shouted, yeah. I did it, and smiled like an idiot. She was as happy, and Kyubi was proud of her again that she passed this because she knew that Naru was worst in genjutsu. Maybe she will learn to do genjutsu someday, Kyubi thought. After that Naru noticed Iruka's shocked expression on his face. She wondered if she had done something wrong and asked him what was wrong with him. He just said nothing and told her that she passed this test and that she can now leave and call for the next in the line, Yamanaka Ino. She sighed while walking outside. She didn't like Ino and she didn't want to talk to her, but now she had to. Well, it was just telling her that she should go to Iruka now. While Naru was walking outside, Iruka had still a shocked expression on his face. Need to talk to the Hokage. This can't be true, can it? Well, I don't know. The Hokage just had to give me some answers, Iruka thought. After he noticed Ino walking into the room, he quickly dismissed these thoughts and explained what to do to Ino. But he was still wondering what just happened with Naru. Naru sat down under her tree again, still wondering what was wrong with Iruka. Was it that he thought that she would not pass this test and now she passed it and he just had not expected it? Yeah, I think that would be it. Can't think of something else. Everyone know that I suck at genjutsu, especially Iruka, she thought, and then dismissed these thoughts because now she knew, or thought she knew, why Iruka was shocked. Like the whole day after she finished the part of the exam, she had to wait for the next part. Now she watched her classmates what they were doing. Hinata, Kiba and Shino were still doing what they did after the second part. Sitting around, Hinata and Kiba talking while playing with Akamaru, while Shino just nodded or shook his head. Shikamaru and Choji were still sitting in the grass. While Shikamaru lay in the grass watching clouds and Choji sat beside him eating chips. Ino and Sakura, the 2 fangirls, were still sitting next to Sasuke, telling Sasuke how great he was and yelling at each other that it was Sasuke. Sasuke was just sitting there ignoring them. Sometimes Naru could see that he stole a glance at Naru, but quickly looking back to the ground again and then continued brooding. Everything was just like it was the whole day. Now the last part of the exam started and Iruka began to explain what they had to do like in every part before. Okay everyone, now the last part of the exam will take place. This is the taijutsu test. You will have to fight me in an one-on-one sparring match, taijutsu only. You have 10 minutes to hit me once and blocked hits don't count. If you don't hit me in this time you will not directly fail. You will be judged by your performance. If you hit me you will directly pass. That's all for this part. Some questions? Explained Iruka, who waited a few moments for some question but no question came. So he called the first for the sparring match. The first fight was kind of boring. Some slow and worse academy taijutsu, and he didn't hit Iruka in the 10 minutes time but passed because he did well enough. The next few fights weren't different. Shino was the first to hit Iruka after about 6 minutes. Choji and Shiamaru after about 8 minutes, Kiba with his clan taijutsu style, and Hinata after 5 with her Juken style. The almighty Uchiha Sasuke finished after 4 minutes. Sakura didn't hit Iruka after all, and Ino wasn't called to the match yet. It was Naru's turn now, and she stepped in the fighting area. She asked Kyuubi if which style she should use, the one she was learning from the scrolls of the academy style. Kyuubi just told her that she should stick to the academy style in this test because she shouldn't show everything she could do now. She walked up to Iruka and stood in front of Urka about 5-meter distance. "You ready, Naru?" Iruka asked, and Naru only nodded and got in a defensive stance. "Good, then begin," he said, and the match begun. Naru directly charged at Iruka, trying to hit him with a punch straight in his face. She was in front of him and tried to hit him with right hand only to have it blocked by Iruka, and he held her fist in his left hand. She couldn't get her hand out of his grasp, so she tried to hit him with her left hand only to be blocked again and also holding it tight in Iruka's other hand. She struggled to get free, but Iruka was still holding her hand tightly in his own. She thought about what to do until she had an idea. She did a backflip and tried to hit Iruka with her feet. This caused him to let go of her hands, or she would have hit him. Now Naru and Iruka stood facing each other in a defensive stance. Naru knew that she had to attack Iruka again, and so she charged him again, but this time she knew to avoid that he hold her hands tightly again. She threw her left hand at Iruka's chest, but Iruka simply sidestepped it. She quickly did a round quick with her right leg from right to left, trying to hit him while he sidestepped the punch, but he brought his left arm to block the kick. But this was what she was waiting for the whole time. She took his left wrist in her left hand so that he couldn't move away from her. Iruka hadn't expected that, but before he could do something it was too late. Naru turned herself around to the right and smashed her right elbow in Iruka's gut. After she hit him, she let go of his wrist and turned around to face him. All Iruka could think now was, "Damn, that hurt." He didn't expect her to be that strong. Naru just smiled sheepishly and rubbed the back of her head. "Well, Iruka, I passed, right?" she asked her teacher, who just smiled and nodded. "You did well, and it took you about 5 minutes. Good job, Naru. Now you can go back to the classroom and wait until the exam is over to get the results," Iruka said, smiling to his student. Naru turned around and walked smiling to the classroom, and Iruka called the next, Ino. Ino didn't do well, but after 9 minutes she got a lucky hit at Iruka and passed the exam. After another half an hour of waiting in the classroom, everyone was now there, including Iruka, who just entered the room carrying a lot of Konoha forehead protectors. He put them down on the desk in front of the class and started to talk. "Okay everyone, I congratulate you all for passing the Genin exam, and you are now officially a Konoha Genin. I won't talk long because I know everyone wants to go home and show their forehead protector to your parents. I will tell you which team you will be assigned tomorrow." He began and noticed Naru's sad look at the word parents, but he continued, "I will now call you now one by one to get your headband. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to telephone you who is Rookie of the Year and so on. Rookie of the Year is Uchiha Sasuke." Every girl except Naru cheered at Sasuke. Sasuke was just silent and looked like he expected to be Rookie of the Year. He also had an arrogant smirk on his face. "Calm down, girls. Now Kunoichi of the Year is Uzumaki Naru." Silence. Everyone in the class turned around to her. She was shocked, she hadn't expected this. "But sensei, why is someone like her Kunoichi of the Year? I am much better than her," shouted an angry Sakura, who jumped out of her chair, facing Iruka and pointing at Naru. "Sakura, Naru has most points of all female in this class. She passed every test, and for example you didn't hit me in the taijutsu test and also was worse than Naru in the second part," Iruka explained her calmly. Sakura sat back down with anger written in her face and crossed her arms in front of her chest. She knew that she had no good arguments left. Well, her first argument wasn't that good at all. "Okay kids, then the first can come down to get his headband." Iruka said and called one by one to the front to get his or her headband. Finally it was Naru's turn. She walked up to Iruka. "Congratulations Naru," he said while handing Naru a forehead protector with a black headband. "Thank you Iruka-sensei," she answered with a smile while taking the headband and tying it around her waist like a belt. "And we will talk later about the little stunt you did after the third part Naru," Iruka whispered so that only the two of them were able to hear it. "Hee, okay Iruka-sensei," she said smiling sheepishly and then walking out of the classroom to her apartment. In the evening the Hokage was doing his paperwork in his office when an Anbu came in and told him that Iruka wanted to talk to him. He nodded and the Anbu let Iruka enter the room. "Hokage-sama, there is something I want to talk to you about. It's about Naru. Something happened during the Genjutsu test." Iruka began and sat down in front of the Hokage's desk. "I think I know what you want to tell me. It comes from her mother's side. But I am not willing to tell you anything more about it," he answered to the teacher. "Good Hokage-sama, I think you have your reasons for that. But you know that we have to put her now in a certain team." Iruka told the old man and he nodded. "Yes I know that and I already put her in that team." "Is that all you wanted to talk to me about?" asked the Hokage. "Well yes, good night then Hokage-sama," he said and walked out of the door. "I hope everything will go you well. I wish I could tell Naru who her parents were," the Hokage thought and went on doing his paperwork. On her way Naru didn't care about all the glares. She was just too happy. She was one step closer to reach her goal in her life, to be the best kunoichi in the world. It would be really hard to become the best kunoichi but she didn't care. It was her dream, her wish and her goal in life and she would do everything to reach it. While walking she remembered that she had to buy some groceries and looked for a shop on her way back. She quickly found one and walked in to buy some but was kicked out before she could even get near any. "Damn, forgot to do a henge," she mumbled and walked to the next store she found. Now with a henge so the shopkeeper wouldn't throw her out. She always had to do a henge to buy things like groceries or clothes because nobody would sell the demon child anything. It made her sad and when she was young cried often because of the treatment but now she was used to it and shrugged it off. Taking the groceries she needed she went to pay. She paid and the shopkeeper wished her a good day and she continued walking home. She wouldn't have wished me a good day if she knew who I was she thought. When she reached her home she noticed that her door was opened. Hope they didn't broke in and destroyed my apartment again, she thought while slowly walking in her small apartment. She lowered her head at the sight presented to her. She didn't had a lot of furniture but now everything was destroyed, again. She sighed and put the groceries next to the door while looking around. She walked through the apartment. Living room, bathroom and bedroom. That were all the rooms she had. The kitchen was in the living room, if you could call it a kitchen. She was glad that the shower was still working because it would be really hard to repair it or get a new one. The bedroom and living room were devastated. Furniture broken and some things even stolen she noticed because she didn't find them anywhere. She was glad that most of her clothes weren't stolen, burned or something else. Words were painted on the walls again like, demon, monster, or, die. A few tears were running down her cheeks while she did a few hand seals to create 5 cage buncheons to clean the rooms. The clones quickly began cleaning the rooms and Naru went to the rest of the kitchen and began making something to eat. After she finished eating the clones also finished cleaning the bedroom and living room. She went in the bathroom to brush her teeth and after that went to the bedroom to get some of her scrolls to read. She always kept them hidden behind a seal so nobody could steal them. She took a few and sat down on the ground leaning against the wall. She read for hours and when she finally got tired she put the scrolls back and lay down on the bed, well that was left of it. She quickly began to sleep and was excited which team she would be assigned to. The next day she woke up at about 8 and was supposed to be at the academy at 11 o'clock. She got up and went to the bathroom to do the things she did every morning. After finishing with her bathroom activities she went into the kitchen and made something to eat. She quickly ate her breakfast and walked out of her apartment with one scroll in her hand. She had about 2 hours spare time and she wanted to do some training to improve her taijutsu. The style she was learning from the scroll was hard to learn and even harder to really master. Few people mastered the style, was a note on the first scroll which described the style. This style used speed and less strength. It was focused on quick hits on pressure points to take out an enemy quickly. Because of this, she had to learn every pressure point on the body and know its exact position in order to damage to the opponent. If she didn't hit the enemy on a pressure point, it would be deal less damage or nearly no damage at all. But if she hits a pressure point, she could do a lot of damage like the Jukin. Light hits with fatal damage if doing the right way. But she wasn't that good in the style, she only had the basics down yet and nothing which could kill an enemy easily. She practiced the style for nearly 2 hours and stopped only because she noticed that it was time to go to the academy. She sped over the roofs in the direction of the academy. She was really excited, which would be her third teammate. Again, she was last in the classroom only to be greeted with death glares coming from all girls, well, Uchiha Sasuke fangirls. Everyone knew that she would be in the same team as their precious Sasuke-kun. It would be like every year. The Rookie of the Year would be teamed up with the Kunoichi of the Year and the Dobi, well, the dead last. This was general knowledge, and that's why every girl was jealous of her, wanted to be her and hated her at the same time. She didn't care about all the glares from the fangirls but was somehow glad that she would be in the same team as Sasuke. She couldn't explain why and didn't understand herself why, but she felt somehow happy to be with him. Maybe it's something about what I saw in his eyes yesterday, she thought while walking to her seat in the room. Kyuubi snickered at her thoughts. She knew or thought knew why she felt like that but didn't want to tell it to her. On her way, ignoring the ranting fangirls and turning down an invitation to dinner from Kiba. He is persistent, she thought while sitting down. She could think being a friend of Kiba but nothing more. She wasn't interested in any guy at the moment, she wanted to get stronger and achieve her dream. I'm not going to look for someone, but if I meet someone, she thought with a small smile. Sasuke sat in the back of the class as usual. His head rested on his hands and not looking at someone, and of course not talking to anyone. All he was doing was brooding like always. You hardly found him not brooding after the massacre 4 years ago. He just stopped brooding when he noticed Naru walking up to her seat, which was next to his. Well, at least I am in a team with a cute girl, he thought with a dreamy look, only to recognize what he thought a few moments later. He couldn't believe what he had just thought. He, Uchiha Sasuke, has thought, cute. While mentally slamming his head on the table in front of him, he just thought, bad Uchiha. Bad Uchiha. After he was done with that, he said to himself that he had meant, I hope my team will not hold me back. Now he was satisfied with his thoughts and began smirking, which was hidden behind his hands. If you ask yourself why Sasuke is hitting himself always mentally, well, what would it look like if the great Uchiha Sasuke would hit himself or slam his head on the table? Naru noticed his distant look, which was replaced with a satisfied look a few seconds later. She wondered what he was thinking about but shrugged it off because she couldn't read minds and Sasuke would never tell her what he was thinking about. So she just dropped the topic and began thinking about her upcoming training and her genin team. She wondered if they would have good teamwork and become friends or only be a team because they had to. I wonder who my sensei will be. Oh, and I hope we get interesting missions, she thought while Uruka was entering the room and greeted everyone. Hello and welcome to the last day in the academy for every one of you. He said, well, only if they will pass the real test, he thought, and began smiling. At all, he would see some again of them. Okay everyone, like I said yesterday, today you will be assigned to a team which will consist of 3 people. And from this day you will be a genin of Konohagakure, and I hope that every one of you will grow strong to defend the village and your precious people. He continued while watching the excited students in front of him. But don't forget, as a genin, a ninja of Konohagakure, you have responsibilities you have to attend to. I will not repeat myself again because I told them often enough to you in your time here. He paused while looking around the room. I will tell you now which team you will be assigned to. Did I tell you who the Rookie of the Year and Kunoichi of Year is? He asked. He watched all the glares which were sent to Naru. This answer my question, he thought with a sweat drop on the back of his head. Okay. He started to tell the genin which team they would be in. Starting from Team 1, finally he came to Team 7. Team 7 will consist of Uchiha Sasuke. Every Sasuke fangirl began to squeal at his name being called Uzumaki Naru. Silence. Death glares were sent at Naru from all the SFC, A.N. Sasuke fan club, and jealous looks at Sasuke from the boys, mainly Kiba. And Nara Shikamaru. Your Jonin sensei will be Hitaki Kakashi, he finished. Shikamaru? Shikamaru is the dead last? I thought he was so smart. Maybe this was all too troublesome for him. Naru thought and giggled at the part too troublesome. On the other side, Sasuke was thinking, I hope Naru and the Dobi will not hold me back. Shikamaru just thought, troublesome. Team 8 will be Aburame Shino, Hyuga Hinata and Inazuka Kiba. Your Jonin sensei will be Yuhi Kurenai. Team 9. Yasuyuki, Shizuka Takara and Masami Ren. Yu Jonin sensei will be Shiranui Genma. A.N. This team will fail at all and I never will mention them again. Only didn't want to write something like Team 9. And last but not least Team 10. Akamichi Choji, Yamanaka Ino and Haruno Sakura. Your Jonin sensei will be Sarutobi Asuma. He finished with assigning the teams and heard a loud yell of "Forehead Girl" and "Ino Pig" and a snickering class. The two biggest fangirls in one team. This could be real fun. I wonder what would happen if these two would be in the same team as Sasuke. She thought and imagined what would happen. Then she just began to giggle and tried hard not to start laughing loud. Sasuke just had one thing in his mind, I hope they kill each other. Then they won't get on my nerves again. And the rest of the genin just thought something on the lines of Naru. So, I will leave now. Your new senseis will be here in a short time to get you. They will tell you then what you will have to do. I wish everyone good luck and I just wanted to say that I am proud of you all. He said and left the room. And so the waiting began. After only 15 minutes the first 5 teams were gone already and only teams 7, 8 and 10 were left in the room. Sakura and Ino were talking to Sasuke and asking him out. Kiba asked Naru for a date over and over again. Shikamaru was taking a nap. Choji was eating chips and Shino and Hinata were sitting quietly in their chairs not talking to anyone or doing anything. After another 5 minutes the Jonin sensei of Team 8 came and told them they should follow her. Kiba asked Naru one last time for a date this evening only to get it turned down, again. Shino and Hinata were quietly following Kurenai already. Kiba had his head down and noticed that he had to run to catch up to them. Now only Choji, Sakura, Ino, Sasuke, Shikamaru and Naru were left. 10 minutes later Asuma the Jonin sensei of Team 10 came to pick up his team only to be met by 2 females watching at a black-haired guy in awe and a chips-eating boy. He also told them to follow him and Choji told Shokamaru, bye, and began to follow his sensei. Ino and Sakura told Sasuke that they would see him today evening and left the room, too. Now there were only 3 genins left in the room. Uchiha Sasuke, Nara Shikamaru and Uzumaki Naru. Our sensei is late, 1 hour late. I can't believe we got a sensei who is this late. I thought that a ninja always had to be on time. Were some thoughts of Naru while waiting for their sensei. I hope this Jonin will teach me something powerful to kill my brother, was all Sasuke thought. Was all Shikamaru thought. Well, he was sleeping. They waited and waited. After 2 hours still nobody in sight. Naru was playing games in her mind with Kyuubi, Sasuke was brooding and Shikamaru was still sleeping. After another hour they finally heard the door open and some gray-haired man coming into the room. He was wearing a standard Jonin outfit. Dark blue pants and shirt with a Jonin vest on top of it. He also wore a dark blue face mask and his headband covered his left eye. He looked kind of lazy. My first impression of you guys is, he said and looked around at the 3 genins sitting in the room who were looking waiting for him to continue. I don't like you. Naru and Sasuke's sweat dropped while Shikamaru was sleeping. This guy. Why do we get some strange guy as sensei, Naru thought while Kyuubi was laughing in her mind. Shut up, Baka Fox, she hissed at the kitsune who only laughed more after that. He doesn't look strong, were Sasuke's thoughts. Was all Shikamaru was thinking because he was still sleeping. Wake the lazy guy over there up and follow me to the rooftop. There we will introduce ourselves and I will tell you what we are going to do. He said and with a poof, he was gone and only smoke was left where he once stood. Naru went over to Shikamaru while Sasuke went out of the room with his hands in his pockets. Naru shook him and he woke up and mumbled, troublesome, and looked around to see what woke him up. He saw Naru standing next to him. Huh? Was all he asked. Sensei was here. He told us to meet him on the roof where we will introduce ourselves and he will tell us what we are going to do. She answered him, turned around and began heading to the rooftop. Shikamaru lazily stood up and followed her. On the roof, Naru saw Kakashi sitting on the railing of the roof and Sasuke was already sitting in front of him. Both were waiting for Naru and Shikamaru. Kakashi was just reading an orange book with the title, Icha Icha Paradise, and Sasuke was brooding. Another pervert. Are all men perverts? Well, maybe this can be helpful, thought Naru with an evil smile on her face while walking to them. Naru sat down on Sasuke's left side while Shikamaru sat on his right side. After both sat down, Kakashi closed his Icha Icha Paradise and put in a pocket of his jacket. Okay, we should introduce ourselves first. I mean likes, dislikes, dreams and so on. I will start. My name is Hitaki Kakashi, as you know. My likes and dislikes are for me to know and for you to find out. I don't think you need to know about my dreams yet. Well, lazy boy, you next, he said, pointing at Shikamaru. All we got to know was his name. All the three genin were thinking at the same time. Troublesome. My name is Nara Shikamaru. I like watching clouds and playing shogi. I dislike troublesome things. My dream is to live a normal life, get married someday and have 2 children, he said to introduce himself to his teacher and new teammates. Next one, the brooding one, Kakashi said and pointed at Sasuke. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I have few likes and many dislikes. My dream, no ambition, is to kill a certain man and revive my clan, he said in an emotionless voice. Okay, and last one, Missy. Your turn. Yo, I am Uzumaki Naru. I like cooking, ramen and training. I dislike fangirls, fanboys and perverts, she said and glared at Kakashi at the word pervert, who only smiled under his mask. My dream is, well, to be the best kunoichi in the world so everyone will acknowledge me, she said. A lazy bum, an avenger and a strange girl. Well, could be worse, their sensei thought and began to speak again. Good, that's enough for Todi. You'll have the rest of the day off. Meet me tomorrow at Training Ground 7 at 7 am. There we will do the real genin test. Okay, see ya. And don't be late. Oh, I forgot. Don't eat or you will throw up, he said with an eye smile and disappeared in a poof of smoke. After that, all 3 genin went different ways. Sasuke wanted to train, Shikamaru went cloud watching and Naru wanted to go and buy some new clothes. Naru went through Konoha, a good shop, to buy some new clothes. Kyuubi personally wanted to help Naru getting new clothes. The Queen of Demons already had ideas for the clothes. They should be good for fighting but also be really why. She had some ideas and wanted to test them. After about 30 minutes Naru found a shop and she entered it after she did a henge and was looking through the clothes in the shop. She was talking to Kyuubi the whole time, asking her for advice or listening to her what to try on. It took another 30 minutes to pick one outfit that Kyuubi thought would be good for a ninja but also why, and Naru went to try it on. She watched herself in the nearly mirror and was enthusiastic about her new clothes. She wore a dark blue tight tank top which revealed some parts of her abdomen including her navel. The top itself left few things to the imagination. Above her top she had a dark red sleeveless chunin-like vest with a lot of pockets to store scrolls and other things a ninja needs. The vest was a bit longer than the top and she kept the vest open to show the top she wore, which Kyuubi insisted. Added to this, she had a black miniskirt which went down half the way of her thighs. Under the skirt she also wore black short shorts, or hot pants. They were shorter than the skirt so it looked she wore nothing but her panties under the skirt. She had kept the black ninja sandals. The last thing she wore were dark red fingerless gloves which had small steel plates sewn in to make them harder, which made it possible for her to block attacks better and hit her enemies harder. Her weapon pooch was tied on her hip. I know that I am not that good at people deceptions, but I hope that you got a general idea of what it looks like. She was pleased with the new outfit and bought it more than once to have some if this would be damaged in battle and to have some to change. She also bought a black dress which she fell in love with on the first sight and a few new bras which she needed because of her new thanks to Kyuubi. She took her new clothes and began to walk home. She still needed to eat something, take a shower and go to bed. She needed to get up early tomorrow at all. On her way back she attracted more men than she wanted to. Some were trying to ask her out, some asked her where she lived and some asked her other things. Thnik about that yourself. She even heard some men whistle after her, but she ignored them all and went straight home. The next day she woke up early and began to do her normal morning routine. She wondered if she should eat something or not because their sensei told them not to eat. She discussed this with Kyuubi, and after that she ate breakfast because his tenant told her that she only could do her best if she had enough energy and wasn't hungry. The Queen of the Demons also thought that it included some part of the test they had to do, but she didn't tell it Naru. Naru finished breakfast and quickly went to Training Ground 7. She was first there and had another half an hour time to spend, so she began to go through some of the few basic katas of his taijutsu style she was learning, which she was already able to do. Sasuke was next to arrive at Training Ground 7. He was there 10 minutes early. He saw Naru doing some training which he thought would be taijutsu. He watched her going through some katas which looked like she was dancing to Sasuke. Then he noticed her new outfit and all he could think was, wow. He didn't even start shouting at himself mentally at himself for thinking that, because for him, it was a fact that she was, wow, or in other words hot. He just sat down under a tree and kept gazing at her. Naru just stopped doing her training when she noticed that Sasuke arrived and was gazing at her. I think he likes what he sees. Maybe I can play a bit with him, she thought while smirking. She waved at him and began walking over to Sasuke, smiling. Hey Sasuke, she said to him while walking. This brought him out of his daydreams and he noticed that she was walking over to him. She was already about 6 meters in front of him when he nodded to her for greeting. He wasn't sure what he would tell her if he would talk to her right now. She was now finally standing in front of him and she thought of what she could do to him. Kyuubi told her some things she could do and she was eager to try them out. I wonder how Sasuke will react. Hey Sasuke, can I sit down? She asked with a sweet smile. Sasuke didn't think about it, he just nodded. At all, what would be so bad with her sitting down here? His eyes widened when he noticed where exactly Naru sat down. She was not sitting next to him or in front of him. She was sitting directly on his lap, leaning her side on Sasuke and her head on his shoulder. Sasuke's body just stiffened by this close contact. What the hell is she doing? Naru felt him stiffen. I thought he would throw me off, she thought while trying not to giggle. What's wrong Sasuke-kun? I thought you allowed me to sit down. You don't need to be nervous. It's just me, you know. She whispered seductively in his ear, which caused a small blush on Sasuke's cheeks as some perverted thoughts came into his mind. She began to circle her finger on Sasuke's chest and continued to whisper, I thought you liked what you saw while I was training and what you see now. Now you even have a better view than while I was training. Naru noticed that the blush deepened and changed her position on Sasuke's lap. She was now sitting in front of him, facing him. Her legs were on his left and right side. Or maybe you want to see more Sasuke-kun? She asked him. Sasuke still was stiff. He couldn't move, no muscle would move an inch. He didn't want to speak because he didn't know what he would say. On the one hand, he wanted her to leave him alone because he needed training to get stronger and kill his brother, and relationships were only distraction and hindrances. But on the other hand, he wanted her to stay and to be with her. But he was Sasuke, Uchiha Sasuke. He had to kill his brother and he couldn't be with her. Maybe after I have killed my brother we can, he thought, and his blush deepened even more. Naru saw that everything was working so well. That he had not kicked her off already was strange, but she didn't mind. She could play more with him that way. I know you want it Sasuke, don't you? She asked him while looking into his eyes. She took off her dark red vest and flung it somewhere next to them. She then moved the left strap of her top and bra over her shoulder, revealing even more skin. What's wrong with you Sasuke-kun? I would appreciate it if you would do something. You know, doing all by myself is kind of boring, she told Sasuke while taking both his hands and putting them on her hip. Sasuke still couldn't move. He was still thinking about a way to get out of this situation. How do I get out of this? But, do I really want to get out of it? Of course I want. I need to. I can't let anyone slow me down. But she is so. No. Do something Sasuke. Do something. But all he did was sitting there not moving an inch. Sasuke was just like a big doll. What would his fangirls do if they were in my position? Naru thought and was still trying not to laugh, which was becoming harder every second. Hey kid, go to the last part and I bet poor little Sasuke-kun will faint, Kyuubi told her with a grin. I don't know. She answered her tenant, who kept on talking to her that she should do it and she would even teach her a new jutsu if she did it. Finally Kyuubi won. Okay, I do it. But I don't think the great Uchiha Sasuke will faint because of that. Well, in my opinion the words, Sasuke, and, faint, don't fit together. We'll see, Kit, we'll see, and she began to snicker at the thoughts of an almighty fainting Uchiha Sasuke. Well, I don't really like doing this but, it's for a new jutsu. She now placed her left hand on his thigh and began to move it up to his crotch. Sasuke noticed that and still wasn't moving but in his mind shouting at himself to do something. On the one hand he was just shocked that Naru would do something like that but on the other hand he was thinking too much at the moment do something in the real world. He was thinking from ways to stop her to perverted thoughts which included Naru, making his face redder and redder. She slowly advanced her hand to his crotch and started to stroke it gently. His eyes widened at the soft contact of her hand between his legs. What should I do? He repeated in his mind since that point. He still isn't out cold. I thought this would work. Well then let's continue with what Kyuubi told me. I don't like it that much but well. A new jutsu. She thought and smiled at Sasuke's facial expression. Hey Sasuke, you are not dead are you? I mean, you are not moving at all? Don't you like what I am doing? She asked him with a sweet and seductively voice. Well, here goes nothing, she thought and took Sasuke's left hand with her right hand moving it to her right. She now placed his hand on her with hers on top of his, I don't like this at all. After that she used his hand to squeeze her wrist lightly. I need to act a bit now to make this look more authentic, she thought and let out a quiet moan. That was too much for little Uchiha Sasuke. His last thought was, soft. Before perverted thoughts overwhelmed his mind causing him a small nosebleed and not long after that he fainted. Fainted for the first time of his whole life. Naru couldn't hold back her laughter anymore and she fell to her side laughing and rolling on the floor next to Sasuke. After about 10 minutes she could get a hold of herself and started to stand up and pick up her vest. She couldn't believe that she just made the great Uchiha Sasuke faint. It's just hilarious. She never thought that she would see the day he would faint because of something like that. But she had to admit that it was kind of cute the way he acted in this situation. Kid, that was great. Kyuubi said to Naru between her laughs. I'll teach you the new jutsu after your little test. Oh, and by the way, someone will be joining you soon. Well, to be exactly, 2 persons. I think this must be your sensei and that lazy bum. Naru thanked her and had now an idea. She quickly mussed her hair up like she had a wild time with Sasuke who was still out cold. She wondered how they would react. She knew sat down next to Sasuke and waited for the arrival of her sensei and Shikamaru. Just as she sat down she saw them walking towards them. Shikamaru and Kakashi finally arrived at Training Ground 7 about only 1 hour late and their eyes widened a bit at the sight they saw in front of them. There just was Sasuke laying on the ground, Mabe sleeping and next to him leaning against the tree was Naru with wild hair. What were the two doing while they were alone? Was the question they both had in their minds but they just shrugged it off because it was none of their businesses. Kakashi just giggled perverted and Shikamaru mumbled his favorite word, troublesome. Neither Kakashi nor Shikamaru dared to ask the question, what happened? Well, hi Naru. Kakashi said cheerfully, I think everybody is here so we can start the test now. Would you mind wake up Sasuke? He asked with his favoutire eye smile. Sure Kakashi-sensei, she answered with a grin. She shook him lightly to wake him up but Sasuke didn't. She shook him harder but to no avail. After that she just smacked him over his head which caused Sasuke to wake up and shooting up into a sitting position. Because of his quick movement his head nearly hit Naris which could have ended in a kiss if he had not stopped a few inches in front of her face. Finally he recognized who was merely a few inches in front of him. Naru with wild hair. What happened? I don't remember anything after I touched her. Sasuke would never think that he fainted. Wild hair. Looks like she had done. Oh no, we haven't. He thought and began to panic. Now that you're awake and I hope you had fun during the little action we had. She said to Sasuke which could only be heard by him and her. She stood up and happily walked over to her sensei. Sasuke just blushed at the thought of what they could have done and tried to hide it from the others. After another minute he finally got rid of that blush and walked over to his team. He thought that no one of them saw the blush but Kakashi noticed that after Naru whispered something. He knew, or had his little fantasies of, what happened between them. He just giggled perverted like he did since he arrived. Good, now that everyone is awake I will tell you what you 3 have to do. He began and took 2 little bells out of his pocket and showed them to the genin. You just have to get these bells from me. Who don't get a bell is going to go back to the academy. That means there can be one going back to the academy up to all three of you. So you better attack me with the intent to kill, or you will have no chance of getting a bell from me. He told them and put the bells on his belt. Nobody answered a question because they thought he was serious about all he said. The test was a bit strange, but he was their sensei and he has the last word after all. They all just nodded and waited for his sign to begin. It is now 8 a.m. so you have got 4 hours to get a bell. Okay everyone, let's begin. He finished and everyone vanished except Kakashi, who just pulled out a little orange book and began reading. Okay, where was I? He thought. I have to get a bell. I don't want to go back to the academy. I have to fulfill my dream. I'll not be stopped here. I have to avenge my clan. Nobody can stop me. And after I avenged my clan. Troublesome. I think I'll go and take a nap somewhere. And with them vanishing from sight, the test started. Good, they are hiding well. Now back to the book. Kakashi was thinking while reading and walking around the training ground. Each genin had different plans of what they would do now. Sasuke was hiding in the trees and waited for an opening to attack Kakashi and grab a bell. He knew, or thought, that he would get a bell easily. Naru was trying to come up with a plan. She also hid in the trees and watched Kakashi walking around trying to get some ideas of what she could do. Well, she saw his little orange book and knew that she would have a backup plan if nothing would work. But Shikamaru had the best plan of all. He took a nap. Well, it was an easy plan and everyone could do it. Kakashi finally stopped walking around and sat down in the middle of the training ground. Maybe this will make them attack, he thought, and took a quick look at his surroundings. Nothing in sight, and that was all he needed, and got back to his really informative book. Then he started his perverted giggling again. Maybe I could try to get him now. It seems like he isn't paying attention, but he is a jonin and I know he hasn't dropped his guard. But still I can try. It won't hurt. I hope, Naru thought, and quickly made 4 cage bunchins and ordered them to surround him and wait for her signal to attack. The clones quickly ran through the surrounding forest of the training ground and were now to his left, right, front and back. The real Naru quickly did a few hand seals and whispered the jutsu name, Doden. Dochu Igyo no Jutsu, 1. And slowly sank into the ground. She slowly made her way to Kakashi and hid her presence as well as she could, and also told her 4 clones to attack and distract him. Kakashi, who was still reading his book, noticed someone in the woods molding chakra. Now they'll begin, he thought, and a few seconds later 4 clones rushed towards him. These are not normal clones. This must be cage bunchins, but how is a mere genin able to do these? He thought, and quickly put his book back into his pocket, because you should never underestimate your opponent. One of the most important rules in the ninja world. And cage bunchin is at least a B-rank jutsu or even higher. He got into a loose defensive stance and waited for the 4 opponents. He thought that it would be 3 clones and the real one. The clones and Kakashi got quickly into a taijutsu fight, but no clone was able to land a hit on the jonin. Kakashi just blocked or dodged the attacks. But he didn't notice Naru advancing underground because the clones did a good job in distracting him. Then Kakashi noticed that the 4 Naras seemed not really trying to hit him. It looked like they were just trying to distract him from something different. Crap, these are 4 clones and not 3 with Naru. She is up to something. I have to get rid of the clones quickly, he thought, and quickly dispelled the 4 clones and looked around to find the real Naru. He didn't need to wait long to find her because he suddenly felt 2 hands grabbing his ankles and was pulled underground so that only his head was visible, and in front of him stood Naru smiling. Doden. Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu. 2. Quiet handy the jutsu, right Kakashi-sen's. She began only to be interrupted by a poof of smoke. After the smoke was gone, there wasn't Kakashi in the ground, it was just a plain log. Damn it, she shouted and quickly ran back into the woods trying to find Kakashi again and come up with another plan. Kakashi was sitting in a tree near Naru before she sped off into the forest again. I have to admit, it was a nice plan. But they will need to do better to get a bell from me, he thought, and observed the area. Damn it, I thought I have him. But he is a jonin. I shouldn't have thought I could beat him at all, she thought, and began to make a new plan on what to do. Sasuke saw the whole attack of Naru. He also had to admit that it was well planned, but Kakashi still is a jonin and he is way above their level. She'll never beat him and get a bell. But I will, he thought, and finished his traps. Now he just needed to spot Kakashi and lead him into his traps. Together with his taijutsu and ninjutsu, it should be easy to get a bell. That was what Sasuke was thinking. And Shikamaru? Well, he was still sleeping. Finally Kakashi decided to leave his hiding place and jump back into the clearing. After he landed on the ground, he quickly took his book out of his pocket and started reading again. I wonder when the other two will attack the first time. I hope that they will work together or else they will have no chance, he thought, and kept an eye on his surroundings. It didn't take long until about 5 shuriken were flying towards him. The Jonin easily sidestepped the weapons but didn't notice that one shuriken cut a robe. The trap was triggered. Suddenly Kakashi felt a lot of weapons aimed at him. Damn it, didn't see that coming, he thought, and got hit by several weapons. Sasuke smirked and jumped down and walked over to Kakashi, who was lying on the ground, bleeding. Just as Sasuke wanted to grab a bell of his bad injured sensei, there was again a poof of smoke, and the smoke revealed a log. Damn, Kawurimi no Jutsu. Where is he? He quickly took a defensive stance and tried to find his sensei. Only a few seconds later he felt someone standing behind him and let himself fall down to the ground just to dodge a roundhouse kick aimed for his head by Kakashi. Let's start with taijutsu, he just said, and tried to kick Sasuke, who was still lying face down on the ground. He quickly rolled to the side, avoiding the kick, and pushed himself off the ground and jumped back to get more distance between himself and his teacher. Then he took the offensive and attacked Kakashi. He aimed a punch at his head only to be blocked by his teacher's hand. He then quickly used his other hand and tried to hit him in his gut, but again Kakashi was too quick and only sidestepped the attack after he let go of Sasuke's hand. Sasuke attacked on, tried to kick or punch his sensei, but he only missed him, or his sensei blocked the attacks with ease. Finally Sasuke made a roundhouse kick aimed at Kakashi's head, who just blocked it with his forearm, but Sasuke didn't bother to attack again. He quickly tried to grab a bell. But Kakashi could grab his wrist before he able to get a bell. That was close, he thought, and threw Sasuke a few meters away from himself. Damn it, I was so close. Next time I'll get the fucking bell, he thought, and took his stance again. I am not like the others, Kakashi, and this was the proof. I'll get one of the bells, you will see. I'll show you that I am the strongest, he told Kakashi, and began to do hand seals. Kakashi recognized the jutsu Sasuke wanted to do. A genin shouldn't be able to do this, he thought, but then remembered Naru with the cage bunshin. She shouldn't be able to this too, he thought, and did some hand seals himself. Sasuke ended with a tiger seal. He took a deep breath and announced his jutsu, Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu, 3. Before he let out a big fireball which was aimed at Kakashi. Kakashi also finished his jutsu and whispered, Doden. Doroku Gashi, 4. And slammed his palms on the ground and pulled up a rock and dirt wall to protect himself from the fireball. The fireball hit the wall and Sasuke tried to break through it by putting more chakra into his jutsu. But soon he felt that most of his chakra was gone and he needed to stop. The assault on the wall stopped and it slowly started to fall down. Sasuke was breathing hard because he used a lot of chakra for his jutsu and it didn't have any effect. But his eyes widened when the wall finally was dispelled. Kakashi was nowhere in sight. He tried to find him, which didn't take long because he heard Kakashi's voice behind him. You should never let your opponent get behind you, Sasuke, he said while crouching behind him and making a tiger seal. He turned his head and saw what his teacher was doing. He isn't going to, he thought when he saw Kakashi making a tiger seal. Naru, who was watching the whole fight between the two, was getting worried. He will kill Sasuke. That's a fire Tekken, but her thoughts were disturbed when Kakashi announced his jutsu, Konoha Kyurhiden. Taijutsu no Ogi. Senin Garashi. 5. Hidden Leaf Secret. Taijutsu Supreme Technique. 1,000 Years of Pawn? That sounds bad, she thought. She just watched what would happen next. But what happened next, she didn't expect. Kakashi just plunged his index finger into Sasuke's ass, sending him flying to somewhere far away while screaming due to the pain. Naru just sweat dropped. This is the hidden leaf secret. Taijutsu Supreme Technique. 1,000 Years of Pawn? He has got to be kidding me. But well, I could use it sometime as well, she thought and smiled evilly. This works every time. Well, back to my story. Kakashi thought and put his nose back into his Icha Icha paradise. Sasuke landed somewhere in the forest. Damn this bastard. I'll get him for that, he thought while he still felt the pain. By the way, what the hell was that for a technique? It has to be a joke. To get beaten by something like this. It can't be true, maybe I'll wake up in a few minutes. He thought and tried to sit down only to jump up after he felt the ground due to the pain. Naru was thinking about what to do. We can't win against him if we go alone fighting him. He's a Jonin after all. But what could we do? Wait, we? Of course. We have to work as a team. Damn it. Why didn't I think about that earlier? I need to find Sasuke and Shikamaru. Now that I think about that lazy bum, what the hell is he doing and where is he? She thought and began jumping through the trees trying to find someone of her team. Shikamaru was still taking a nap. He suddenly sneezed and woke up. Damn, someone must be thinking or talking about me. Troublesome, he thought and went back to sleep. Naru was running towards the same direction Sasuke was sent flying after Kakashi's technique. It would be much quicker to find Sasuke because she had a hint where he was and she had no idea where Shikamaru was at the moment. So she went the easier way and tried to find the Uchiha. It didn't take long to find Sasuke. He was standing in front of a tree leaning against it. Poor Sasuke. I think his ass still hurts, she thought and began to giggle silently. But she stopped when she jumped down and stood a few meters in front of Sasuke. She waved at him with a smile on her face. Hey there Sasuke, she exclaimed while slowly walking to him. HN, was all she heard of Sasuke. I know what to do. We need to find Shikamaru. Then, she was cut off by Sasuke who simply stated, no. She stopped walking and looked at him. She was a bit angry that he even didn't let her finish what she wanted to tell him. She first wanted to punch, kick or even use Kakashi's technique on him, but she had another idea what she could do to him which was even more fun from her point of view. She slowly began to walk again and was smirking. What is she up to? Sasuke thought and tried to step back only to notice that he was leaning against a tree and couldn't get away. You just could have said. She began to talk when she was standing directly in front of him. Quote. That you wanted. She now wrapped her arms around his neck, to be alone with me again. She finished and pulled herself to him. After that she rested her head on his chest. You could have just told me, she said again and noticed Sasuke stiffen again. Not again. What am I going to do? Was going through his mind at the moment. It doesn't matter what I am going to do. I must do it quickly. We don't have much time left for this stupid test, he thought but still didn't move. Now, what do you want to do with me Sasuke-kun? She whispered seductively pulling herself even closer to Sasuke. Sasuke just blushed as perverted thoughts entered his mind and tried hard to shrug them off. But he wasn't really successful. It was kind of like before the test. He couldn't do anything, no muscle would move. He didn't know what to do, he only knew that he had to do something. He needed to get out of this. Naru looked up to him and noticed his blush. Now she looked into his black eyes. She was locked into his eyes and couldn't stop looking into them. Sasuke was now looking into her bright blue eyes too. They didn't move, only looked into each other's eyes. Everything around them seemed forgotten and they both only thought about the person in front of them. And now Naru had a small blush on her cheeks too. What is this feeling? I never felt like this, she thought and kept on looking straight into his black orbs. The time seemed to stop for them and slowly their faces began to move towards each other. The distance got smaller every second. Their lips were just a few inches apart and Naru closed her eyes. She couldn't understand what was happening and why she had this strange feeling. Sasuke also couldn't understand what was wrong with him. Just as their lips were to touch each other, Sasuke did something he never expected he would do. Just a second longer and they would have kissed each other, but Sasuke did something he didn't want to do. His body was moving on his own without him telling to move. He put his arms around her waist and quickly turned her around so that she was now with her back at the tree. He lightly pushed her against the tree and Naru's eyes shot open when she felt that she was moved. He smirked at her and she was trying hard to understand what was happening. She lost control over the situation? It couldn't be. She was the one who had control the whole time and not Sasuke. She wouldn't let him have control. On the other side, Sasuke was trying to understand why his body moved on his own and not now when he wanted it to move. He again couldn't move. It was strange and he couldn't explain it. He looked down into her eyes again and he felt the same feeling he had before he changed their positions. Both were locked into each other's eyes again and couldn't stop looking into the other's eyes. But Naru didn't want to lose control and wanted to do something. She couldn't think of what she really could do at the moment, so she did what first came into her mind in hope that it worked and that she would get the control over the situation back. She still couldn't believe that Sasuke did something. She had thought the whole time he wouldn't be able to do anything. But, well, she was wrong. She still had her arms around his neck and used them to pull herself up a bit so that she could wrap her legs around Sasuke's waist. Sasuke then pushed her a bit stronger against the tree. And Eiji and their faces began to move towards each other only a bit quicker than the last time. It felt like an unknown force was pulling them. Their lips got closer and closer. Naru closed her eyes again and Sasuke tried to stop. But he didn't succeed. Their lips touched and Sasuke also closed his eyes on the contact. This feels good, I could get used to this, were Naru's thoughts, and Sasuke's were similar. They stayed like this for some time, which felt like hours for them. But every good things had to come to an end. Some things earlier and other things later. When they heard a rather loud cough, their eyes shot open and quickly jumped away from each other, blushing hard. They both looked at other before they looked to the direction they heard the cough come from. They saw Kakashi sitting in a tree giggling perverted. I hope I didn't disturb anything here, did I? You know that you don't have that much time left. You should do these things after the test, he said with one of his favorite eye smiles and continued to giggle. They just looked at each other again and blushed even harder, if that is even possible. Naru was the first to get back to her senses and quickly grabbed Sasuke, dragging him away from Kakashi, who didn't bother to follow his students and went back to the clearing still giggling. We need to find Shikamaru, now, she said while dragging Sasuke, who didn't answer. He just let her drag him. He was too deep into his own thoughts about avenge his clan, revive his clan, Naru, and what happened. She dragged him nearly through the whole forest to find Shikamaru. But when she heard someone snore, she knew that it was him. I can't believe it. He's sleeping? During the test? I knew that he was lazy, but that lazy? It can't be true, she thought while walking towards the direction she heard the snore, still dragging Sasuke. She finally saw him lying under a tree sleeping. She walked over to him and let go of Sasuke. She tried to wake him up, gently shaking him, but it didn't work. Shikamaru just turned out and kept sleeping on his other side. A vein appeared on Naru's forehead and her left eye began to twitch. She smacked him as hard as she could over the head and it helped. Shikamaru was awake now with a rather large bump on his head. Why did you have to do this? I didn't do anything. Troublesome woman, he said, half awake while holding his head due to the pain. Exactly, that is why I did it. This is a goddamn test and you were sleeping. What the hell were you thinking? She said out loud, trying hard not to shout at him. Now listen, we do have to work as a team in order to pass the test. That's all we have to do. Work as a team. It's all about damn teamwork, she explained to her teammates. Sasuke, who heard this, got back into his Uchiha mode and answered, I am an Uchiha. I don't need anyone to get a bell. I can handle this alone. It sounded like he recited some text or something like that. Maybe there was a book about, I am an Uchiha and I have to behave like this, and he learned the whole book by heart and could recite those damn sentences the whole day. Naru was now pissed at Sasuke for being the arrogant ass again. She couldn't stand arrogant people and no one would get between her and her dream to be the strongest kunoichi. But Sasuke would make them all fail if he would stay in this Uchiha mode. And failing the test would be holding her back to achieve her dream. No one would stop her from achieving her dream, and especially not Sasuke. Shikamaru noticed that she was really angry. He could read it in her body language and he quickly took several steps back, trying to get away. He didn't want to be between these two at the moment. It would be a troublesome situation. He was hiding behind a tree, sometimes taking a look at the situation in front of him. His father once told him, never face a woman's wrath, and he would follow his advice. She slowly turned to face Sasuke and smiled at him. Cracking her knuckles, she asked him, what did you say, Sasuke-kun? Sasuke didn't notice all these signs for a troublesome situation. I said, that I don't need your help. I can handle him alone. And even if you would want to work as a team, you would only hold me back and slow me down, he told her, still not noticing that Naru was pissed and Shikamaru already hid behind a tree. But he slowly felt the killing intent radiating of the girl in front of him. She slowly began to walk over to him, like a predator when he found its prey. Sasuke was scared of Naru. He tried to back away but he wasn't quick enough and Naru already grabbed him. That was when he began to sweat and hoped that he would survive this. Shikamaru just closed his eyes. He didn't want to watch what was happening to Sasuke. He only could hear screams, yelps and other sounds which indicated pain. When the sounds stopped he opened his eyes and saw a beaten-up Sasuke lying on the ground right next to Naru, who seemed to have calmed down. Beating something or someone up can always calm someone down. Now Sasuke-kun, let's work as a team now, shall we? She asked him and started smiling again. Was all he could say at the moment but nodded in agreement. Well, at least it looked like he nodded. Good boy. I am glad you are so willingly working with us as a team. She said, bent down and gave him a peck on his cheek which caused Sasuke to blush again. Now we should make a plan. Troublesome woman. Her mood changes so quickly. I wonder if it's the time of the month. He mumbled under his breath as he walked over to the beaten Sasuke and smiling Naru. But Naru caught what he said. She started cracking her knuckles again. What did you say, Shika-kun? She asked with a sweet voice. Shikamaru began to sweat. Damn it. How the hell did she hear that? Troublesome. Nothing. I said nothing, Naru, he answered and tried to smile. Well, it looked kind of a smile. He was still sweating and hoping that he wouldn't suffer the same fate Sasuke did. Okay, then let's start to make a plan, she said cheerfully and sat down next to Sasuke, who was still lying on the ground. Shikamaru joined them and they started to talk about what they could do. They quickly knew what to do and made their way to the clearing, hoping to find Kakashi there. They had a plan. It was not the best plan, but they didn't have the time to think about it too long. So this plan had to work. Kakashi was still sitting there waiting for his students while reading his book. He noticed them coming but didn't move. He just wanted to wait for them, and because they were all walking together at the moment. Maybe they understand the test and work as a team. This would be the first team who understand this test in all the years. They stopped at the sight of Kakashi sitting in the clearing. Nodding to each other, Shikamaru and Naru both left Sasuke according to the plan they made. Sasuke was now sitting and waiting. He should wait for about 5 minutes. Then he should start with his attacks. He quickly ate a soldier pill to get his chakra level higher. He needed it because he already used most of his chakra in the first fight with Kakashi. Sasuke waited, and after the 5 minutes were over he took out a kunai and wrapped an explosive tag around it. He picked another 4 kunais and threw them all at the sitting Kakashi. Kakashi, who already felt the genins, moved out of the way and the kunais hit the ground just 1 meter in front of him. But his eyes widened when he noticed that one kunai had an explosive tag around itself, which quickly began to burn and exploded just 2 seconds after. The 3 genin saw Kakashi flying away from the impact and landing on the ground about 50 meters away from his earlier position. Sasuke jumped out the tree and walked over to Kakashi, who was still lying on the ground motionless. Sasuke smirked. I knew that I could handle you alone, Kakashi, he said, and bent down to grab the bells. Just as he was about to grab the bells, Kakashi burst into smoke and revealed a burned log. Shit, he thought, and quickly took a defensive stance, searching for his teacher. Naru still sat in the tree. She knew that she should go and help Sasuke, but she didn't know how because their sensei was nowhere to be seen. Where is he? She thought and watched the whole area trying to find him. She kept watching the area until a thought came into her mind and her eyes widened. Maybe he is. She stopped thinking and quickly rushed to Sasuke, who was still standing on the spot trying to find Kakashi. Sasuke saw Naru rushing towards him, and when she reached him she tackled him out of the way. They both landed on the ground with Naru on top of Sasuke. What the? Sasuke began but was stopped when Naru raised her hand and then pointed over the area where Sasuke was standing before. He looked at the location and saw 2 hands which came out of the ground. He used the same technique Naru did earlier. If she didn't tackle me I would have been underground now, he thought. He had to thank her later. Just then they both noticed their position and quickly separated. Both were blushing. They were standing now next to each other and took a battle stance. Kakashi emerged from underground and turned to face his students. I thought I would get Sasuke with that. I never thought that you would see through it, Naru. Well done, but as supposed from the 2 love birds, he said and smiled. He always liked it to tease people about something like that. Now he had someone else than Kurenai and Asuma to tease. Live was good. Sasuke, can you do a fireball? I have an idea. Naru whispered to Sasuke, who nodded and quickly did a set of seals. With the name of the jutsu called, he shot a fireball at Kakashi, who reacted as Naru thought and hoped he would. He pulled up another wall made rock and dirt to protect himself from the jutsu. Naru quickly did a set of seals herself and took a deep breath. Futon. Daitopa, 6. She whispered and sent out a blast of wind at Kakashi. The blast of wind then mixed with Sasuke's fireball and formed an even stronger jutsu. She hoped that the two jutsus would break through the wall and hit Kakashi. That would weaken him and it would be easier for them to fight with him. Kakashi didn't see anything from behind his wall, but he could feel that Naru did something too. But he couldn't hear what she was doing and hoped that it wasn't anything strong enough to destroy the wall. The two techniques hit the wall, and the moment they hit the wall began to crack. When Kakashi noticed the cracks in the wall, it was already too late for him to escape, and only seconds later the two techniques exploded, destroying the wall and sending Kakashi flying again. The only difference this time was that Kakashi had no time to escape the blast. All he could do was to protect his face with his arms and to hope that it wouldn't hurt much. After he flew a great distance, he finally crashed onto the ground and slid another few meters until he came to a halt. His clothes were burned in various parts and some parts were cut open. Damn, that hurt. I shouldn't have let my guard down, he thought, and stood up shaking. It hurt far more than he thought it would be. They would need more to beat him. He was a special Jonin after all. He eyed them, and the two genin quickly took their stances and waited. No one knew who would attack first, but Kakashi wouldn't go on the offensive. He took a defensive stance himself and waited for them to attack him. Then his eyes widened in shock when he noticed Naru's stance. There is no way? How? Where did she learn this style? I only knew one person who used this. But how did she learn it and who taught it to her? He thought while he was watching her exactly. He knew that if she uses the style he thinks, then he had to be careful and that he needs to dodge instead of blocking her attacks. While he was thinking about the style, the two genin already took the offensive and tried to attack Kakashi. Naru tried to hit some pressure points in her sensei's arms, trying to render them useless, and Sasuke tried to do as much damage as he could. Kakashi blocked most of Sasuke's punches and kicks and dodged a few of them, while he always dodged Naru's attacks. The few kicks she aimed at him he easily blocked. Damn, where is that lazy bum? Thought Naru and Sasuke while fighting Kakashi. They only had about 5 minutes left and they needed to do it quickly. They wanted to get those damn bells. They finally were near the forest and still tried to find any trace of their teammate. The moment Kakashi catched a punch with his hand, both genin noticed a shadow stretching towards Kakashi. Sasuke quickly freed himself of Kakashi's grasp and they both jumped back from Kakashi. Both breathing hard. That was not bad, but you two alone will never get a bell. You need Shikamaru in order to. He stopped and his eyes widened. Where is Shikamaru? He thought, and then noticed the shadow moving towards him. Before he could dodge the shadow, he was caught and couldn't move anymore. Kagemane no Jutsu, 7, success! Exclaimed Shikamaru, who lazily walked out of the forest. Kakashi just smiled. Looks like we won, Kakashi-sensei, Naru said cheerfully and walked over to her sensei in order to take the bells. But when she was about to grab the bells, the Kakashi in front of her just made poof. Kawarimi? They all thought? When the smoke was gone, there was nothing. No. But how? We fought a cage bunshin? But how long? The whole time? No, it can't be. Naru thought and tried to find their sensei. They hadn't much time left. Well, you nearly got me. I have to admit, it was a good plan. Should we continue then? You still have a few minutes left. He told them, and their heads turned towards their sensei. We don't have much time left. Damn it, Sasu thought. Troublesome. Was all Shikamaru was thinking. Damn, we don't have much time left. What can we do? I know. She thought and quickly did a hand seal and announced her technique. Haremu no Jutsu, 8. She created 15 naked clones and they all jumped at Kakashi and tried to hug him. Kakashi did what every male would do. He fainted due to blood loss from a huge nosebleed. When Naru dispelled her clones, she quickly walked over and grabbed the bells. She then turned around to her teammates and noticed that they did the same Kakashi did. They fainted too. She sweat dropped and made 3 new clones and ordered them to pick the unconscious men up and take them over to some tree trunks which were on the training grounds. She sat down between the unconscious Sasuke and Shikamaru and waited for them and their sensei to wake up. It took about 15 minutes for Kakashi to wake up and the two boys did the same after another 5 minutes. Naru just grinned sheepishly and rubbed the back of her head. Kakashi stood in front of them and began to smile. "You," he began, and the three genin waited excited for him to continue. "Pass," he finished. "Meet me here tomorrow at 10 p.m. He told them and vanished in a poof of smoke. "I am off, guys. See ya tomorrow." Shikamaru told them and left Naru and Sasuke. They were alone again. They looked at each other and they remembered what happened during the test. Both began to blush again and looked the different direction. "Let's get back, shall we?" she asked Sasuke, who just HND, and they began to walk back to the village. They walked in silence the whole time. They still had a blush on their cheeks and took an interest in the ground. When they reached the village, they noticed some girls and boys waiting for someone. Obviously they were waiting for Naru and Sasuke. Naru didn't even knew she had a fan club like Sasuke. I don't know if the training grounds are outside the village. In my story they are. Naru began to smile evilly and turned to Sasuke. "Want to play a game, Sasuke?" she asked him. "Huh?" he responded and turned to her. "Well, let's call the game, Make the Fangirl, Fanboy Faint. Who gets more to faint with one action wins," she explained him. Sasuke just smirked and nodded. "You first, Sasuke." He thought about what to do. He never has done something like that before, so it was hard for him to think about what he could do. He had an idea and hoped that it would work. He smirked and just waved at the 10 girls waiting for him. 8 of the 10 girls immediately fainted and the other 2 seemed to faint every moment. Sasuke just waved a second time and the last 2 also fainted. "Not bad. 8 out of 10. But I will win," Naru told him, smiling. "Show me," he said and smirked at her. She knew what she needed to do. She just blew a kiss at them and got the reaction she hoped. 9 of the 10 boys fainted. The last one fainted after Naru waved at him. "I won," she exclaimed, and both began to laugh. "We need to do this another time again, Sasuke," she told him and began to walk towards her home. Yeah, he said and smiled for the first time for a long time. He quickly began to follow her. When they reached Naru's apartment, they both stopped and looked at each other. "This is my home," she told him. He nodded, said goodbye and began to walk away, only to be stopped by Naru, who grabbed his wrist. He turned to face her and wanted to ask her what's wrong. "What's wrong?" he began, but was cut off when Naru gave him a quick kiss on the lips. "See you tomorrow, Sasuke-kun," she told him and quickly went inside her apartment. Sasuke just stood there thinking about what just happened. He was back to reality when he heard the door close behind Naru. He touched his lips with his hand and began to walk home. The whole time thinking about a certain black-haired girl. Unnoticed by the two, they were watched by a pink-haired and a blonde kunoichi. Kakashi was walking to the Hokage Tower to give his report. He needed to tell if he had passed or failed his team like he did all the years before. It was the first team he ever let pass. The only thing different was that Kakashi was on time, and everyone knows Kakashi is never on time. He quickly got to the Hokage Tower and went to see the Hokage. When he opened the doors to the room, he noticed 3 other Jonins talking with the Hokage. Obviously giving their own reports. The Jonins were Yuhi Kurenai, Sarutobi Asuma and Maida Guy. A.N. I know that his real name is Mike Guy, but I like Maida Guy more. Kakashi wondered why Guy was in the room because he already had a team for a year now. He shrugged it off and closed the door behind him. All eyes were on Kakashi and everyone was thinking, he's on time? Is the end of the world near? After that they noticed how he looked like. Burned and cut clothes and bruises could be seen on his body. What the hell happened to him? Were their thoughts now? Everyone was silent. Kurenai was the first to break the silence in the room. "Kakashi, what happened to you? Tripped on the road of life because you wanted to be on time?" she asked him, which made the Jonins and Hokage in the room smile. "Actually, yes," he answered, which made everyone sweat drop and Kakashi smile. "But as you see, I am on time. I wanted to report about my team, Hokage-sama." He finished and bowed to the old man. "I see, I guess you let them fail again. I'll get the papers," the old man told him and searched for something in his desk. "My eternal rival. How can you do something unyouthful like that every year? All these youthful genin. Guy began with his youthful speech and waited for Kakashi to answer after he stopped talking, which everyone was glad about. Kakashi just turned to him and answered him, "You said something, Guy?" Which made everyone sweat drop again, and Guy began to rant about hip attitudes and how his eternal rival bested him again. "But I didn't fail them. They actually passed," he said with one of his eye smiles. Everyone's eyes widened at that comment, and the old Hokage stopped searching for the papers. "Say what?" They all shouted in union, not believing what Kakashi said. It must be one of his jokes or something like that. It couldn't be true. "They passed my test. They are my new genin team," he answered, which made them widen their eyes even more. Sarutobi was the first who could speak after Kakashi's announcement. "Okay, then we will have 3 instead of 2 new genin teams. Team 7 lead by Kakashi, Team 8 lead by Kurenai, and Team 10 lead by Asuma. You are dismissed, or are there any questions?" the old man asked the Jonins in the room. "Actually, there is Hokage-sama," Kakashi answered, and everyone looked at him thinking about, what does he want now? "Go ahead. What do you want to know, Kakashi?" he asked the gray-haired man. "Well, I have a few questions concerning the members of my team. You know that I got the Rookie of the Year, Kunoichi of the Year, and the Dead Last. I wanted to get some information about them from the last Academy reports." He told the old man and waited for his answer. "Good. Wait a second, I am going to get the records," the Hokage said, and searched something in his desk. He finally pulled out a folder and turned to the Jonin. "Okay, the first report is about Nara Shikamaru. Worst in the class, he never finished his written tests and only wrote, troublesome, after he did about 50% of the test. It was always enough to pass. In the genin exams he only did enough to pass too. It looks like he always wanted to just do enough pass and never do more. They ranked him low mid-genin. The reports also states that they gave him an IQ test. The result was, he stopped when he saw the numbers and his eyes widened. Above 200 inches, he said, disbelieving. All the Jonin's eyes were wide open too. It's not every day that you get to know that someone has an IQ above 200. A lazy genius. Though Asuma out loud, who was the first to speak. The others only nodded and turned to the Hokage again. The Hokage searched for the next report. The next is about Uchiha Sasuke. As everyone knows, he is the last living Uchiha in Konoha. He has his clan's bloodline, the Sharingan. In the academy he was always the silent one, not talking to anyone. He always had the best results in the class. About jutsus there is only stated that he is capable of doing all the academy techniques they teach. He never showed that he can perform any other jutsu. He is ranked upper genin to low chunin already. That's all the last reports say about him. The old man read out. That's what everyone thinks about their precious Uchiha, Kurenai said. But Kakashi shook his head. The report isn't really up to date. First, he is capable of doing more than only academy jutsu. He performed a Kaden Gokakyu no Jutsu 1 during my little test, which is after all AC rank fire technique. Second, he isn't that unsocial like the report says, he told them and began to giggle after he finished his statement about unsocial. His giggling changed slowly into a perverted giggling, which was noticed by all the people in the room. They all thought, what happened? Well, Kakashi, I can see that he could use a fire jutsu. Just look at you clothes. But, how can you say that he isn't that unsocial? I never saw him talking to anyone if he didn't need to. Kurenai asked the perverted Jonin while her eye began to twitch at him, giggling like the pervert he was. You see, I caught him with Naru in the woods during the test. They were kissing and embracing each other tightly. Naru also had her legs wrapped around him. It looked like that scene of Icha Icha Paradise Book 4 when Mariko, he was cut off by Kurenai, who just shouted that he should shut up because no one wanted to know what happened in that scene. Well, she thought no one wanted to know. The old man and Asuma both thought, damn, why did she has to interrupt him? But they didn't show that on the outside. So, you are saying that the Uchiha Sasuke was kissing a girl? Asuma asked, still not believing Kakashi. Yes, he did. I couldn't believe it myself first. But they were. And he is a lucky one to get someone like Naru. He was cut off when a fist hit his head. Shut up, Kakashi. She is too young for you. So stop even thinking about your perverted stuff. Kurenai hissed at him, who held up his hands in defense for the hidden, pedophile, comment. I'm only stating the truth. Kakashi whined and the other's sweat dropped. Well, I think that they are a great couple. So cute and Kurenai began in her girly mode, but Nododi listened to her anymore. The Hokage already found the last report and began to read it to the others. And now to the last one. Uzumaki Naru. She was best kunoichi in the class. Always late to class and never really talked to anyone. Just like Sasuke. Capable of doing the academy jutsus. Ranked as upper genin to low chunin like Sasuke. Other than that there isn't much about her. The Hokage told them. Well, that isn't really up to date too. I wonder if the teachers at the academy ever took a real look at them. Kakashi said, earning questioned looks of the other Jonin and Hokage. During the test she showed some techniques a genin shouldn't be able to do just after he or she left the academy. And how she learned them is still a question for me because I didn't knew there was someone training her. Well, she did a C and D rank Doden Jutsu, a C rank Fuden Jutsu and even a secret Konoha B rank Jutsu, the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. But the most strange thing I noticed was the taijutsu style she used. I only knew one other person who used it and that person has been dead for 12 years now. Kakashi finished his explanation. You don't mean the style the Yondaime used, do you? The Hokage asked him. She used the style. She hasn't mastered the style yet, which is understandable, but she used some basic attacks of the style. The stances were the same sensei used. But where could she learn this style? Arashi always said it is a secret clan taijutsu style only known to the clan. And he was the last of his clan after all. Maybe there is still one left and we don't know him or her. But why would the last one teach Naru the style? Kakashi asked. It could be possible that there still is another Kazama out there. But I never noticed someone teaching Naru. I'll have to keep an eye on her. And for the question why someone would teach it to Naru, I don't know. The Hokage mused. He waved his hand in order for them to leave and the four Jonin bowed to the old man and left in a poof of smoke. After Naru closed the door behind herself she quickly went into the bathroom to get a shower. While she enjoyed the hot water she thought about the day. It was a hard day and she was glad that she was able to pass Kakashi's test and was now a genin of Konohagakure. But when she thought about what happened between her and Sasuke she blushed. She wondered about her feelings she had when she was looking into Sasuke's eyes and when she was kissing him. She had never felt like that before, but she liked these feelings. Maybe Q-chan knows what these feelings were, she thought, and quickly tried to talk to her tenant. Hey Q-chan, do you know what I felt when I was with Sasuke today? She asked Kyuubi and waited for an answer, but all the kitsune did was laughing. What's so funny? She demanded to know. Well kid, I know what you felt, she said and smiled. Naru was waiting for her to continue. But she just kept silent. And, Naru asked. She wanted to get an answer. She wanted to know what these feelings were. But, I won't tell you. Kyuubi finished and grinned. You're mean. Tell me, come on. Naru said and began to beg the queen of the demons. I need to do something or she will keep on begging for hours. She's so damn stubborn. Kyuubi thought and had an idea. No. And by the way, do you want to know which jutsu I am going to teach you tonight? Kyuubi asked Naru, who quickly forgot that she wanted to know what she felt after she heard the words, Nujutsu. Which is it? Is it strong? Is it hard? Tell me, Naru said, waiting again for an answer. Kyuubi just sweat dropped. Need to remember that. Tell her you'll teach her a jutsu and she'll forget everything. Kyuubi thought and began to speak. Well, the jutsu I was going to teach you is called Bunshin Daibakuha, too. It is like the Kage Bunshin, but the difference is that you create a clone that will explode on command. You create a shadow clone, but you have to add another seal to it. This will make the chakra in the clone unstable and on command it will explode. The more chakra you put into the clone, the bigger the explosion. Since you are using your Kage Bunshin often, I thought that this technique would be an advantage for you. Your opponent never knows if the clone could explode or not. Kyuubi finished. Naru, who already got out of the shower, was jumping up and down in the bathroom. That's so cool, she was shouting in her mind the whole time. She stopped when she heard a knock on her door. She wanted to go to the door and open it but was stopped by Kyuubi. Kid, I think that the person in front of the door would like to see you naked. But I think it would be better if you at least wrap a towel around your body, she said, and Naru quickly took a towel and wrapped it around her body and went to open the door. But the person in front of her house wasn't patient and knocked again after only a few seconds of waiting. He continued knocking until Naru shouted that she would be there in a few seconds. Naru reached the door and opened it. In front of her door stood a person she never had expected to visit her at home. It was none other than Kiba. Kiba was looking at the ground trying to find the words and courage to speak to her. He had heard about the kiss of Naru and Sasuke about half an hour ago from two kunoichis. Who could that have been? He knew that he needed to get her or that bastard Sasuke would get his love. And he would fight with everything he had. Kiba, what do you want? Naru asked after some seconds of silence. Well, why you see, I wanted to ask you. He began and finally looked up but had his eyes closed. Quote. Do you want to go out with me tonight? Do you want to go out with me tonight? He finished quickly shouting the last part, not taking a single breath or break between each word. Naru just stood there not moving, and she didn't notice that the towel slipped a bit of her right, which revealed more than she would have wanted to. This happened because she forgot to hold the towel up after Kiba shouted his question in her face, and she tried to cover her ears with both hands. Even Kyuubi was not fast enough to warn her because Kiba already was opening his eyes waiting for an answer to his question. But Kiba didn't expect the sight he saw when he opened his eyes. Right in front of him stood Naru with only a towel wrapped around her slim body. But what made Kiba think he is in heaven was the fact that the towel wasn't covering her right. His eyes widened, his jaw dropped to the floor, and he got a nosebleed like every male would get. But the worst thing for Naru, or later Kiba I would think, was that Kiba interpreted the whole situation wrong, totally wrong. Kiba was thinking something along the lines of, she is trying to seduce me. And the fact that Kiba had a huge crush on Naru made everything worse. Naru on the other side had no idea what was going on with Kiba at the moment. He was standing in front of her like a statue with wide eyes, an open mouth and a nosebleed. What the was all she was thinking at the moment. She didn't notice the whole thing about her being revealed to Kiba. But when Kiba began drooling, she knew something was off. It was difficult to see what Kiba was looking at due to his wide-opened eyes. First she looked behind herself trying to find something which could make him like that, only to find nothing. What now? She thought and remembered that she only had a towel covering her body. Maybe it has something to do with that, she thought and looked down. Now she knew what was wrong with Kiba. After she let out a loud eep, she quickly tried to cover her with the towel again, but Kiba chose that moment to went into action with what he thought would be the right thing to do in his interpreted situation. Kiba quickly hugged her and tried to kiss her. But Naru kept his face as far away from hers as she could using both of her hands. Get off me, dog boy, she shouted at him, trying to force him off her. But Kiba didn't let go, mumbling something about, I knew it all the time. Get off me, she shouted again, but still no reaction of Kiba. Get off me, she shouted a third time and pushed as hard as she could. You don't have to fight me, I know you want it, Kiba finally said cutely, still not letting go off Naru. What did you say? She asked him because he was too quiet. You don't have to fight against it. I know you love me, Kiba said, still hugging Naru, trying to kiss her. After she heard that, her eye began to twitch. Then let me show you how much I love you, Kiba, she said in the sweetest voice she was able to use at the moment due to all the anger she felt. Kiba expected her to kiss him, but, well, he got something far different from that. Naru just smirked and kneed him into his. Well, somewhere it hurt like hell. Poor Kiba. I don't want to know what Naru would have done with Kiba if he would have been able to kiss her. Hee. The last thing Naru saw from Kiba that day was he crawling away with a whimpering Akamaru beside him. Her face was still red from anger and embarrassment, and she slammed the door shut. After that incident she got something to eat, still mumbling about a certain idiot, and went to bed after she finished dinner. She could vent off her anger during training with Kyuubi that night. She closed her eyes and went to her mindscape and started training with the demon after she told Naru that she liked the way she got rid of that dog boy earlier. She woke up next day early and made everything she usually does every morning. Taking a shower, eating, etc. It was already 9 a.m. and she had to get to the meeting point at 10 a.m. She already forgot the incident with Kiba yesterday and was really happy about the new technique she learned this night while training with Kyuubi. She didn't master the jutsu yet, but she was able to use, and that was enough for her to be pleased with at the moment. She talked to Kyuubi about her training and other things until it was 9:30 a.m. and she left her apartment and went to meet with her team. She reached her destination at about 10 a.m., so she was still on time. Shikamaru and Sasuke were already there, sitting under a tree and waiting for their sensei. Seeing both of her teammates, she waved at them. Morning Shikamaru. Morning Sasuke-kun, she called to them. Shikamaru nodded and muttered a morning, and Sasuke nodded in what was strange for him. He smiled. Naru looked around trying to find somewhere to sit comfortably, and finally she found a comfortable place, Sasuke's lap. So she walked over to him smiling and sat down in his lap. Naru saw his questioning look when she sat down. It's more comfortable than sitting on the ground. So deal with it, Sasuke-kun, and I'll give you a reward later, she told him and leaned her back against Sasuke's chest. Then she took his arms and put them around her waist and finished that with intertwining her finger with his. That's even more comfortable, Sasuke-kun, she told him and closed her eyes waiting for their sensei. Shikamaru, who saw all this, raised his eyebrow. He wondered why Sasuke didn't do anything but shrugged it off and continued to take a nap. After all, it wasn't any of his businesses. Sasuke on the other side was enjoying being close to Naru. He still wouldn't admit it, but he liked the girl. He didn't mind her hugging him and even if she would kiss him again. But his mind was only thinking about the reward Naru mentioned. He was trying to figure out what his reward would be. They were all waiting for their sensei but were woken up by a rather loud "you" from two enraged kunoichis. Team 7 slowly opened their eyes and the first thing Naru saw was something pink and blonde. In front of Team 7 were standing Team 8 and Team 10 along with their Jonin senseis, Asuma and Kurenai. But still there was no sign of Kakashi. "Get off my Sasuke-kun!" Sakura and Ino were shouting simultaneously. After that they glared at and insulted each other because of the "my Sasuke-kun" part. Everyone just sighed. "Well, Asuma-sensei, Kurenai-sensei, what are you all doing here?" Naru asked, who was the first to answer after the two enraged kunoichis began shouting at each other, ignoring them like everyone else. "Well, it's normal that on the new Genin teams go together to the Hokage to get their first mission. He'll tell you some things and everything like that. So we made up to meet here. And Kakashi is late as usual. We wanted to make a little tournament and see which team is the strongest. We need to be at the Hokage Tower at about 2 p.m. So we should have enough time left, but well, your sensei isn't here so we have to wait." Kurenai explained. The Genins, who all just nodded, except Sakura and Ino, who were still shouting at each other. All Genins and the two senseis were doing something, waiting for Kakashi. Team 8 was sitting under a tree talking. Well, Hinata was stuttering, Shino didn't say a word and Kiba was shouting stupid things like always. Sometimes he stole a glance at Naru and blushed at the thought what he saw yesterday. He already forgot the painful end of everything or just pushed that away. Shikamaru was sleeping and Choji was next to him, eating. Sasuke was still sitting under the tree hugging Naru, who was sitting in his lap and trying to snuggle deeper into his embrace, which didn't go unnoticed by Sakura and Ino, who stopped shouting at each other and continued to yell at Naru. Asuma and Kurenai were talking. Finally Kakashi appeared in a poof of smoke like a Jonin's always did. He was just about 3 hours late. Everyone glared at him. A few seconds later a loud "you're late" was heard through Konoha. They didn't listen to his explanation why he was late and the Genins asked Kurenai if they could start the tournament now. "Sorry, we don't have enough time for that. It's already 1:30 p.m. and we only have half an hour to be at the Hokage Tower. So we need to go." Kurenai answered and all the Genins stood up. "What do you want as a reward, Sasuke-kun?" Naru asked him when they both were standing. Sasuke was thinking hard about what he wanted as a reward. "What can she give me? That's a difficult question. I don't know." He was thinking until an idea came to his mind. "A kiss?" he thought out loud. Everyone heard that and their eyes widened. When he noticed that he said the last part about the kiss, he covered his mouth. "Damn, why did I say that?" he thought. The other people were all thinking something different. "Troublesome," was one thinking. "Guess who? I thought Sasuke didn't want a girlfriend? He always turned his fangirls down," was Choji thinking. Were Shino's thoughts, who didn't care about that. "Maybe Shino and I will kiss each other sometime," thought the Hyuga heiress and began blushing. "Naru is mine," Kiba thought, and Sakura and Ino were thinking about the same, only with Sasuke. Kakashi was right after all. I didn't believe him after he told us yesterday. They're a cute couple, was Kurenai thinking and began smiling. Asuma just shrugged the comment off and Kakashi was giggling like a pervert, which quickly stopped after he got hit on the head by Kurenai. Naru smirked. She didn't expect him to say that in front of all the Rookie 9 and their senseis. She thought he would say something like, "I'll tell you later," and would tell her that he wanted a kiss when they are alone. But she knew that it was a mistake of Sasuke that he said that out loud. He maybe just wanted to think that part. Naru didn't mind that after all. She went over to Sasuke, smiling. It wasn't an evil smile or anything like that. It was a sweet smile that could make a lot of males blush, or if they were fanboys, faint. When Naru was in front of him, she took both his hands, which were still covering his mouth. She put both his hands away from his mouth and placed one of her hands on Sasuke's cheek. She leaned towards him and kissed him. It wasn't a quick kiss like yesterday in front of Naru's apartment. She could feel two pathetic killing intents directed at her, again. Guess who? And she also could feel another small killing intent, maybe directed at Sasuke. Everyone in the area felt the really small killing intents, and everyone knew what was coming next. They all covered their ears with their hands, even Sasuke and Naru. It was just in time before the screaming began. It was something about, "Get off him," her, and she is mine. But well, no one of the genin and senseis heard that. They were really good in covering their ears. Only the rest of Konoha heard these screams and wondered what they were about, but still they went on with what everyone was doing before they heard them. After about 10 seconds or more, nobody knows the exact duration, Naru pulled back and broke the kiss. She smiled at him and turned around to face the others. Everyone was smiling except 3 genin, Sakura, Ino and Kiba. Their heads were red like a tomato from anger. But she just shrugged it off. "Let's go and get our first mission," Naru said, and everyone followed her towards the Hokage tower. The whole way she could feel 2 persons glaring daggers at her. They arrived at the Hokage tower at 1:58 p.m. They walked to the room they would get their missions and waited until everyone was in the room. After they all stood in front of the Hokage, he began to tell the new genins what he does every year when the new genins get their first missions. "First of all, I want to congratulate you personally. You are now the 9 new genins this year, and I am proud of every one of you. As genin, you all have a lot of duties and a lot of new things will come to you. I won't tell you everything which will be new. You will have to get to know that yourself. But always remember, you are now shinobi and kunoichi of Konohagakure. From this day on you will receive missions which could lead even to death later on." He began and watched all the genins in front of him who were listening eagerly to the old Hokage. "Also remember that it is your duty as a Konoha shinobi or kunoichi to always defend the village with your life. I am not saying that you will just be a tool for the village. A shinobi may be a kind of a tool, but they still have emotions. These emotions make every ninja a human being. You can still live your life the way you want to if you are not on a mission. No one is telling you what to do in your free time. So never let your emotions die, but also don't let them take over. If you don't have control over your feelings during a fight, this could easily lead to death." He continued and saw that everyone was still listening to him. "The last thing I want to tell you is that you always be proud to be a ninja. And never forget that Konoha is one of the strongest hidden villages because of our teamwork. We are all like a family. We fight together and we die together. We fight till the end, protecting what is precious to us." He finished and smiled at the genins in front of him. After his words there was silence. The genins were thinking about everything the Hokage told them. "Okay, then let's give you all your first exciting mission. I think I'll start with Team 7. He told them and grabbed a scroll with D rank written on it. "This will be your first mission," he said, and threw the scroll to Kakashi. After that, Team 7 left the tower still excited what their first mission would be. "Kakashi-sensei, what is our first mission? Protecting someone? Fighting bandits? Or?" Naru began wanting something really exciting but was interrupted by Kakashi, who ignored her and opened the scroll and began to tell them what their first mission would be. "No, much better, Naru," he said with one of his eye smiles, and continued. "You have to find the daimyo's cat." Everyone's sweat dropped. That was their first exciting mission? That has to be a joke. "Let's go Team 7, Kakashi said cheerfully and began to look for the small cat. Naru, Sasuke and Shikamaru were just thinking, and this will go on for a long time, and sighed but followed their sensei. After all, they still could need the cash they would get after they finished their mission. Team 7's first D-rank mission was, well, boring. No one thought that it could be that boring as a genin with all those crappy D-rank missions. You couldn't even call these missions. Finding the daimyo's cat was the only thing which could border the name mission, but the rest. It just wasn't something a ninja should do. Working in the garden, babysitting, painting houses and all kind of stuff a normal citizen could do. They couldn't believe that they went to the academy for years only to get something to do like that. This is just a waste of their skill and potential. They were doing all this for 2 weeks now but already had enough of it after only 2 days. Naru and Sasuke already had enough after they heard what they had to do in their first mission. But well, a genin has to start with D-rank crap. It was a normal day after some D-rank mission and Naru was, like always, complaining about everything. Sasuke was just silent but agreed with everything Naru said about these missions. Shikamaru didn't care at all. These missions were not too troublesome, only a bit. It would have been another boring day if Kakashi wouldn't have something to announce. I am glad that everyone here likes the missions we are doing, he said cheerfully. Naru and Sasuke just glared at their sensei and Shikamaru yawned. Well, I just wanted to tell you that tomorrow we won't do any missions. He told them and this caused Naru to jump up and down. That was good news. On the outside Sasuke just nodded but in his mind he did the same Naru did. Shikamaru just thought that he could go cloud watching if they had no mission. Don't think you have the day off. It's just that Kurenai, Asuma and me thought that we could have the tournament another day since we hadn't time 2 weeks ago. I can't even remember why we didn't have enough time left, he said and the genin's sweat dropped. Anyway, we changed the tournament because tomorrow we have a lot more time than we had 2 weeks ago. First we wanted just that the teams fight each other in sparring matches and so on. But tomorrow will be much different. So get equipment for at least 2 up to 3 days. He finished and smiled at his 3 students. Why do we need so much equipment, Kakashi-sensei? Naru asked and the 2 boys just nodded. They wanted to know why, too. I can't say, it will be a surprise. Just get enough equipment and get to training ground 50 at 10 a.m. I'll give the Hokage our mission report now. Bye, he waved and poofed out of existence. Well, see you 2 tomorrow then, said Shikamaru and walked off, yawning. I am going to eat something. Want to join Sasuke-kun? Naru asked the boy smiling. I am hungry so why not? He thought and nodded and both walked towards Naru's favorite bar, Ichiraku Ramen. They walked for about 10 minutes until they reached their destination. They didn't notice that they were followed by about 15 to 20 teenagers which tried not to be seen, but at the same time, tried to watch the 2 as well. That was hard for them because they were no shinobi. Naru and Sasuke felt that there was something the whole time but when they turned around there was nothing. So they just shrugged it off and kept on walking. When they arrived at Ichiraku's ramen bar they quickly sat down and waited for Tucci or his daughter Ayame to take their orders. It took only a few seconds until Tucci saw his favorite customer and quickly greeted her. Hey Naru, how are you? The usual? He asked her. Hi old man, I am fine and yes, the usual. She answered and waited for the old man to give her the ramen. Okay, wait a moment. And, he looked over to Sasuke who sat next to Naru. What do you want? Miso ramen, he answered. Good, he replied and began to make the food the 2 ordered. While Tucci was making their meals Ayame came out of the back of the store and noticed the 2 customers. Hey Naru-chan, she waved at her from behind the counter. And hi, she began while looking at Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke, he just said. Well, hello Sasuke, Ayame greeted him. Well Naru, your boyfriend isn't really talking much, isn't he? She said smirking. Yeah, my boyfriend isn't. She stopped because she just noticed what she had said and began to blush. Well, he isn't, you know. She began and looked down to hide her blush from Ayame. She knew that she would tease her about this for a long time. Sasuke was also blushing. Here you go, said a smiling Tucci and put 1 bowl of miso ramen in front of Sasuke and Naru. They took this opportunity to change the subject. Itadakimasu, Naru said and both began to eat their meals. Sasuke was silent the whole time and Naru was talking with Ayame about girl things. This went on for some time and Naru ate 9 bowls while Sasuke only ate 2. How can she eat that much and still look that good? Sasuke wondered and stared at the girl next to him. Unknown to both of them they were still watched by the teenagers who followed them earlier that day. Hey Sasuke? Naru asked him and he looked at her and waited for her question or what she wanted to say. Thank you for inviting me for dinner, she said and gave him a peck on the cheek. Bye Ayame-chan, bye old man. See you tomorrow Sasuke, she said and went home. Sasuke just sat there trying to understand what just happened and what Naru said. Ayame was giggling and Tucci waited for the payment, smiling. When Sasuke finally managed to realize what just happened, he began to curse mentally. Damn her, she tricked me. I'll get her back for that. He thought and paid for the ramen and went home himself. Neither Naru nor Sasuke ever noticed all the envious glares of the boys and girls who were hiding in the area watching their targets of affection. The boys were envious because Sasuke was kissed by Naru and the girls were envious because Naru got to kiss Sasuke. The stalkers parted after they both left. The boys followed Naru and the girls followed Sasuke. It didn't take long until one of the boys was too loud and Naru finally heard that someone was following her. She quickly turned around and took a defensive stance. I know you are there. So show yourself, she said and waited for her pursuer to show. One by one came out of their hiding spots until 9 boys stood in front of Naru. She just sweat dropped. I didn't notice 9 boys following me? Oh my god, I need to watch my surroundings more. She thought and could have sworn that she heard someone laugh in her head. She got out of her stance and put her hands on her hips. What do you want? She asked, but she thought she knew the answer to that question already. Do you want to go on date with me? All 9 boys asked at the same time. After that they glared at each other because every boy thought she was my Naru and not theirs. Naru just shook her head. No, was all she said and turned around and started to walk away. Luckily the boys didn't even notice her leaving because they were still glaring at each other and arguing about Naru. The same thing happened to Sasuke after he left Ichiraku. Both just thought, fangirls, fanboys are a pain in the ass. Arriving at home, Naru directly went to bed. The next morning came quick and Naru woke up at about 8:30 a.m. and had enough time to get ready for the tournament her sensei talked about yesterday. She did her normal morning routine and started to pack the things she needed for 2 to 3 days. When she finally got everything she needed, she started to seal them into scrolls. She was really grateful to the person who gave her the scrolls because now she never needed to carry a lot of stuff with her. Only a few scrolls and she could store a lot of things in them. After she finished sealing all she needed, she put the scrolls into some pockets of her vest and got out of her house and headed to Training Ground 50. It took her a bit longer than she thought to seal all the things into scrolls and was already 10 minutes late. But it didn't matter to her because Kakashi would be late something about 2 hours. Naru arrived half an hour late to the training ground and she was the last. Even Kakashi was there with a few bumps on his head. Maybe he got dragged here by Kurenai or Asuma, she thought, and started to get faster until she was in front of the genins and their teachers. Sorry, she said and rubbed the back of her head, grinning sheepishly. Kakashi has a bad influence on you, I think. Kurenai said. Anyway, you're here now and we can start with our little tournament. I think you are still wondering why you should have equipment for 2 to 3 days. She began and noticed that Naru didn't have a bag. Naru, where is your equipment? She asked and everyone was watching her and thought that she forgot it. She smiled, took a scroll out of her pocket and showed it to the others. Everything is here, she said and put it back into her pocket. She knows basic sealing. That is interesting. Sealing stuff in scrolls isn't really hard, but still it's a beginning. Who could have taught it to her? Were the thoughts of the Jonin and the Genin just thought that she fell on her head today or something like that? Good, where was I? Oh yeah, you should have that much equipment because we planned on doing a survival exercise. The tournament will be held in the forest behind us, she pointed at the fenced-in forest behind her, and you have to find scrolls in the time you are in there. We hid them in there and the team with the most scrolls wins. You are allowed to fight each other's and steal their scrolls, so you'll have to be on guard the whole time. Are there still any questions? She asked, and only Choji asked what he should eat in the time. He got the answer to eat what they can get in the forest. Okay, then we can start, and with that every team went a different direction to other gates to enter the area. Team 7 was following their sensei to their gate they were supposed to enter. They finally arrived at a gate with a sign that said, Gate 5. They stopped in front of it and began to whisper with each other about things they should do. They began to make a plan on what they would do while they were in that forest. Sensei, when are we going to enter the forest? A curious Naru asked their sensei, who was reading his favorite book at the moment. But Kakashi didn't give them an answer. After waiting for a few seconds, Naru asked again, only to be ignored again. She began to get angry and her left eye began to twitch. Sensei, She screamed at him and tried to attack him but was held back by Shikamaru and Sasuke. "You said something?" Kakashi just asked lazily. Everyone's sweat dropped. "When are we allowed to enter?" Naru asked again, hoping to get an answer now. Well, you were allowed to enter the forest 15 minutes ago." "Sorry, forgot to tell you," he said kind of cheerfully and was smiling. Sasuke and Shikamaru needed to restrain Naru again from attacking their sensei. After that they just entered the forest ready for the little tournament, training and what else this was. Team 7 was jumping through the trees trying to find a scroll hidden in the training ground. Naru already created some shadow clones which were also trying to find something and also covering their sides. There was still the possibility that another team found a scroll and a clone would notice that, so they could try and ambush them to get the scroll or steal it during the night when they were watching their backs carefully. This went on for some hours and it was now about 5 p.m. They also already found 2 of these hidden scrolls. But they haven't seen any other team yet, and they began to ask themselves if they would meet someone of the Rookie 9 or if they'll just continue to move through the forest trying to find the scrolls. Sasuke and Naru hoped they would find the other teams to test their abilities and to get some fun into this tournament, like Kakashi called it. Yet, it was kind of boring. Shikamaru on the other side just thought that it would be too troublesome to meet and even fight another team. If they would have to fight another team, he hoped it would be Team 10, Akamichi Choji, Yamanaka Ino and Haruno Sakura. From his point of view, they're the weaker one of Team 8 and Team 10. It was getting late and Naru already had to dispel her clones because she started to get exhausted. Maintaining these clones for some hours was really tiring. Sasuke and Shikamaru noticed that and suggested to rest now. Naru agreed with them and they quickly found a place to rest. Sasuke was the one to hunt for some food and he came back with some fish and a rabbit. Naru and Shikamaru should set up the camp while he was hunting for food, but they decided not to set up tents, only to get out the sleeping bags because they were able to go on searching for the scrolls or other teams quicker than they would be if they needed to put all the tents away again. And it would make it easier for the other teams to spot them if they were sleeping in the tents. When Sasuke came back, they explained him why they didn't set up tents and he agreed with them. They quickly ate and Shikamaru was the first one to watch over them. Sasuke would be the second one, and they decided that Naru could sleep the whole time because she had done the most of them yet. They started walking again at about 9 a.m. and Naru again made some clones to watch for scrolls or enemies. But now she didn't make as much as yesterday. She didn't want to be exhausted like earlier. Naru was at the front followed by Sasuke and Shikamaru was in the back. They were jumping through the trees again when something got into Naru's mind. A clone has been dispelled and the information she got was where, and that the last thing the clone saw was something pink. She also knew that the clone fell into a trap and that the pink thing was trying to hide somewhere, which was kind of hard for it. She told her team to stop by raising a hand. Sasuke and Shikamaru quickly stopped next to her and waited for her to explain why they should stop. "I have some information on the whereabouts of another team, Team 10. She told them and waited if someone was going to ask something. She didn't have to wait for long because Sasuke was the first to ask the question, "How?" Naru sighed and started to explain, "Well, listen. You know that I am able to do the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, right?" she asked them and they both nodded. "Okay. Let me explain to you why I know where Team 10 is at the moment. You know that a shadow clone is a clone that is solid and exactly like the person doing the technique. Another interesting fact is that everything a shadow clone experienced will come to the person who created it when it gets dispelled or destroyed. And I know where Team 10 is because they just destroyed one of my clones and now I know everything that happened to it and where it went to. You understand that?" she asked them again and they both looked at each other and back to Naru and thought, "Just nod," and that was exactly what they did. "Good, because I was not going to try to explain it to you again," she said and smiled. "Anyway. The clone was about 2 miles west from here when it was destroyed. We also have to be careful and look out for traps set up by them because the clone got destroyed in one. I would suggest to head west and try to get some scrolls off them, if they have some." She finished and both boys nodded again and they went off west trying to find Team 10. Meanwhile, Team 10 was trying to understand what just happened to Naru when she was caught in their trap. "Hey forehead girl, what just happened there? I thought that you would be able to catch someone like you told us and not that they would be able to use Kawarimi to get out of there." Ino nearly shouted at Sakura. She tried to keep her voice low because she didn't want to attract Team 7 to them because they had to be close if Naru was here a few moments ago. But I don't see anything she replaced herself with. So tell me how she did that, Ino pig? Sakura shot back and they both began to argue. Choji just sighed. He didn't want to try to make them stop arguing or both would just start to shout at him, and that was something he didn't want to at the moment. They kept on arguing for some time and didn't notice that they were being watched by 6 eyes already. Okay guys, there they are. Can anyone of you see a scroll? Naru asked them and they both watched closely trying to find one. But no one was able to see anything that looked like a scroll. No, I don't see anything, Naru Sasuke said and quickly stopped when he noticed that he would have attached the chan suffix. Luckily for him, they didn't notice because they were both concentrating on Team 10. I can't see anything also. Shikamaru said. They needed to think of something. They had 2 options. First, attack them and hope that they have at least 1 scroll. Second, they would go back and try to find them later or just get more scrolls. What are we going to do now? Attack or retreat? Shikamaru asked them and they both turned to him. I think we should somehow try to get to know if they have a scroll or not. When they have one, we attack and try to get the scroll or the scrolls. If they don't have any, we will let them be for now. Naru answered, which earned a nod from Sasuke, who agreed. But how are we going to get to know that? Shikamaru asked and Naru was the one to answer to that question again. I think I know how we can do that, she said while smirking. She quickly created a clone and had it henge into Sasuke. Shikamaru and Sasuke now knew what Naru wanted to do and they both began to smirk too. The Sasuke clone jumped out of the trees and walked over to the hiding Team 10, who was still arguing about why Naru could escape the trap made by them. The clone finally was standing a few meters in front of them. That was when Sakura and Ino's kind of sixth sense kicked in and they instantly knew that Sasuke was standing near them, like they would always know. They stopped arguing, which made Choji look the same direction they were looking. But he knew who was standing there before he even looked at the person standing there because of the hearts in the eyes of the 2 girls. In front of them was none other than Uchiha Sasuke, the target of affection of the 2 kunoichi of Team 10. They both jumped out of their hiding place and dashed over to Sasuke, calling out his name and that they knew that they were brought together because of love and stuff like that. Sasuke just raised his hand when they were near him, which made the 2 girls stop. What's wrong, Sasuke-kun? They both asked him and he just took his hand back down. Sakura-chan, Ino-chan. He began, which made the 2 girls blush. I just wanted to know if you already found any scrolls. He finished and waited for them to answer to his question. Choji tried to stop them from telling Sasuke if they had some scrolls or not. He thought that Sasuke was just trying to get to know if they should attack them for scrolls, and if they didn't have any they wouldn't waste their time with them. But Sakura and Ino only had eyes for their beloved Sasuke-kun, so they didn't notice that and made Choji fail miserably in his task to tell them not to tell him about their scrolls. Of course we have scrolls, Sasuke-kun. We already found 3 scrolls. Sakura exclaimed proudly and Ino only nodded. After that she even took them out of her bag and showed them to Sasuke. That was all Team 7 needed to know. While they were talking with her clone, they already sneaked near them in case they have scrolls. Naru quickly jumped out of her hiding place next to Sakura and Ino and grabbed the 3 scrolls before Sakura or Ino could notice anything happen. They were just too concentrated on the clone. Naru landed behind the clone with the 3 scrolls in her hand, smiling at Team 10. Her 2 teammates appeared a few seconds later. That was when Sakura and Ino noticed that they are missing their scrolls and that Naru had all 3. But when they saw Sasuke appearing behind Naru with Shikamaru on his side, they were confused. Wasn't Sasuke standing in front of them talking with them? Naru began to laugh at the scene in front of her. It was just too funny looking at their confused faces. Then the clone dropped the henge and Sakura and Ino's jaws dropped to the floor before their faces got red from anger. After that she dispelled the clone. Naru decided to make them even angrier than they already were. She gave the scrolls to Shikamaru because she knew that he would stay out of the fight, which couldn't be avoided at this point as long as he isn't needed. After Naru gave him the scrolls, she just leaned back against Sasuke, who smirked because he knew what she wanted to do. And this had the effect Naru wanted. With a loud battle cry, Sakura was the first to charge at Naru with a kunai in hand, trying to attack her. Naru quickly got into a defensive stance, ready to defend herself, and waited for Sakura. The distance between Naru and Sakura became less and less. Sasuke moved away from Naru, not wanting to stand in the way. He knew that Sakura was not strong enough to beat Naru, so he didn't worry about it. Sakura was still advancing on Naru with her kunai in hand. She had the intent to hurt Naru really badly for disgracing her with a clone in front of her Sasuke and for touching him. She got closer and closer until she tripped over a root that she didn't saw due to all her anger and fell flat on her face. Everyone just stared at her. Silence. Everyone's sweat dropped. And Naru fell on her back laughing her ass off. Everyone just thought something along the lines of, "And she is going to be a shinobi?" Sakura slowly got back up again, rubbing her nose. When she saw Naru laughing at her, she became furious and just threw the kunai in her hand at her. Naru, who was at this point still laughing, didn't notice the kunai flying towards her. But the kunai still didn't hit her because it was interrupted by a shuriken thrown by none other than Sasuke. Sasuke just walked over to Naru and shook her. When she looked at him, he just pointed at Sakura, and Naru saw that she was up again and ready to fight. So she got up, trying hard not to laugh again, and got into a loose ready stance. Ino, who was still standing in the back, also wanted to fight and started advancing towards Naru too. But she was stopped by Sasuke, who just stepped between her and Naru and told her not to come in the way. Ino knew that she had no chance fighting her Sasuke-kun, so she just stepped back again and went back to Choji, watching the fight between Naru and Sakura. "Now it's my turn, Sakura," Naru exclaimed and charged at Sakura much faster than Sakura did earlier. But what happened next she didn't expect. Naru just ran past her and didn't even show any sign that she wanted to attack her. Everyone was confused and thought, what's she up to? But this confusion didn't last long, because when Naru was behind Sakura, she stopped and did a spin kick to the side of Sakura's head, which made her flying into a tree. Just as I thought, she is too slow to keep up with me, so it was easy to get behind her guard. She thought and got ready again. She did the hand seal for one of her favorite techniques, the Kage Bunshin. Kage Bu, she started but stopped and sweat dropped when she noticed that Sakura was already out cold. She is unconscious that quickly? After one kick? She can't be that weak, can she? She thought and sighed. Sakura wasn't as strong as she hoped and thought she was. She was just pathetic. Unknowingly to Naru, everyone mentally agreed with her. She hoped that she soon would be able to fight stronger opponents to test her strength. Then she turned to Ino and Choji, who were both kind of shocked how fast Naru knocked Sakura out. "You want to fight too, or can we leave now?" she asked them in a bored way, and they could only nod. After all, who would want to fight someone who could knock out someone of your team with only one kick? Team 7 sighed and jumped into the trees, leaving Choji and Ino with an unconscious Sakura behind. "This was too easy," whined Naru when they were away from Team 10. "I thought they would fight better or something. This wasn't fun." "Yeah, I thought they would be better. But anyway, now we have 5 scrolls, so let's just continue to find more," Sasuke said, and his teammates nodded and went on. "Well, it wasn't as troublesome as I thought it would be," Shikamaru thought out loud, which caused his look at him with wide eyes. "What?" he asked them. Sasuke and Naru just answered, "Nothing," and they kept on traveling through the trees. This went on for the remaining time in the forest. Team 7 didn't face the other team or Team 10 again. But they found more scrolls, and in the end they had 9 scrolls. They hoped they have the most and would win this, but nonetheless this tournament was kind of fun, only there wasn't enough fighting. For Naru and Sasuke at least, Shikamaru was glad how everything went. The whole survival exercise ended when Kakashi appeared in front of his genin team and told them that it was over. After that he took them out of the forest, and they waited for the other 2 teams and their senseis to arrive at the meeting place. Team 8 arrived after only about 10 minutes, and Kiba directly tried to get Naru on a date like always, which earned him death glares from a certain person. Kakashi smiled at the reaction of this certain person. Team 10 was the last to arrive. The other teams waited for about an hour until Team 10 finally arrived. Sakura still looked kind of beaten with a red mark on her cheek where Naru's foot connected with her face. "Okay. Now that the little tournament is over and everyone is back here," Kurenai began and looked at Asuma and his team. "We can now finish and give the winner team the prize," she said with a smile. The genins wondered about the prize part because their senseis never told them anything about that before the surviving exercise. "What is this prize?" thought all the genins. "Okay, Now show me how much scrolls you have got. Let's start from the back, Team 10 you first, said Kurenai, and Ino walked to her and showed her 2 scrolls. 2 scrolls, okay, next Team 8. She continued, and Hinata walked slowly to Kurenai and showed her 8 scrolls. Good, last but not least Team 7, she said, and waited for Naru, who was the one who walked over to her. Kiba already exclaimed that they couldn't win anymore and that she now knew that he was the best and some more stuff like that. She sighed and slowly began to get the scrolls out of the backpack of Shikamaru, which he gave her when she walked over to Kurenai. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 scrolls. Wait, we had 9 scrolls, she thought, and looked again into the backpack, but there wasn't any scroll left in it. She turned around and looked at her teammates. Shikamaru just shrugged with his shoulders, and Sasuke began to smirk. Forgot that I had the last scroll we found because Kakashi just came when we found it? He asked and threw the 9th scroll to her. She caught it and sighed. How could I forget that? She thought and sighed again. It looks like we have a winner. Kurenai said, smiling. Team 7 won, and so they are going to get the little prize. She finished. And what is the prize, Kurenai-sensei? Asked a curious Naru. The prize is one of 3 different jutsu scrolls. The first is the Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker technique. The second is Kaden Ryuka no Jutsu, fire release. Dragon fire technique. In my story, Sasuke doesn't know that technique yet. And the last one is Doden Dochu Igyo no Jutsu, earth release. Underground projection fish technique. From my point of view, Naru should be the first to choose. Ladies first, you know. Kurenai answered and waited for them to pick one of the scrolls. Which one should I take? I don't know the Shunshin and the Kaden Jutsu. The Shunshin is only the lowest version, so it's hard to use it in battle. It's just the thing Kakashi always does when he appears. But it still can be handy. The Kaden Jutsu would be quite powerful, I think. But it would still take a lot of chakra to use. And the Doden Jutsu I already know. Hard decision. Wait, I could ask Q-chan, she thought, and quickly began contacting her tenant. Q-chan, you here? I have a question, she called the Fox Queen. I know what you want to ask me. And I have to say that you forgot something again, the Kyuubi said. What did I forget? Naru asked and waited for the reply of the fox. Well, you forgot that I am the Kyuubi, master of the elements, so I could teach you all these low-level element techniques you humans use. So you should just take the Shunshin. You could even try to improve it in some ways to make it usable during fights. But that's only a suggestion. And now let me sleep again. Kyuubi answered and went back to sleep. Naru just rubbed the back of her head sheepishly for forgetting something like that, and everyone around her just wondered why she did that. Well, they couldn't hear the talk she had with Kyuubi. I'll take the Shunshin scroll, Naru said after a few seconds, and after she got it from Kurenai she just went back to her team and started reading the scroll. Sasuke was the next, or just was the first, of Shikamaru and himself, who exclaimed that he wanted the Kaden technique. The Jonins already thought that he would take that technique because he was an Uchiha and the Uchihas were the fire masters. Sasuke didn't care about the 3rd technique scroll after he heard the word Kaden. The Kaden Ryuka no Jutsu was one of the fire techniques he didn't know yet, so it would be an addition to his small jutsu list. But he wondered why Naru didn't take the fire technique. He knew that she already knew the Doden, but the Shunshin was weak. You couldn't use it effectively in battle. And only techniques that were good in battles are good techniques, from Sasuke's point of view. And so Shikamaru got the last scroll, the Doden Dochu Igyo no Jutsu. He wanted the Shunshin first because he could escape from his troublesome mother with that technique. But well, he could ask Naru later if he could borrow it after she learned the technique. But after reading the Doden Dochu Igyo no Jutsu scroll, he thought that this technique wouldn't be that bad. He could hide in the ground and sleep there without anyone annoying him. Okay, that's all with the training. Now we will all get some new missions, Kurenai said, and the 3 teams began to walk towards the Hokage Tower to get their new exciting and very difficult D-rank missions. In the Hokage Tower, Team 8 and 10 already left with their missions and Team 7 was waiting to get their mission. The Hokage looked through some scrolls labeled with a red D. So, Team 7, what do you want to do? Babysitting, walking dogs, or paint a fence for someone? The Hokage asked with a slight smile. No way, screamed an angry Naru. Enough was enough. She couldn't take it anymore doing these boring and stupid missions. Give us some good missions, old man. Iruka started to scold Naru and defend the Hokage. He told them that all the genin teams would do these kinds of missions and that she should respect the Hokage more. After all, he was the strongest ninja in the village. After Iruka finished his lecture, he waited for Naru or anyone to answer. Hokage-sama? Asked Naru with a much too sweet and respectful voice. Everyone just thought, what is she up to? But some knew the answer when Naru did a well-known hand seal. Want me to show you one of my original techniques, or will you give us a better mission? She asked again with the same sweet voice. The Hokage gulped. He knew what she was going to do if he wouldn't give her and her team a better mission. The old Hokage just looked at Kakashi with slight fear in his eyes, and he saw the same fear in Kakashi's. Both just thought, he fears the jutsu as much as I do, and sighed. Well, Kakashi, do you think your students can handle a C-rank mission? He asked, and Kakashi did one of his favorite eye smiles.
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and do comments.